Chapter 3878 was extremely inappropriate the next morning. Yun Chujio scolded Buttface again. Buttface felt that he was not a dog on the inside, and he could not live like this anymore. In the following period of time, the Nameless Sword sect had been negotiating with the 9 pavilions about the situation of the spiritual stone mine in the distant Song Mountains. The Nameless Sword sect had even joined forces with the Xuanji sect and other sects to pressure the 9 pavilions. In the end, the 9-storied pavilion was finally allowed to renew the contract according to its original allocation. As for the matter of 1 billion upper-grade spiritual stones, Hei Shinjio naturally treated it as if it did not exist at all. On this day, Yun Chujio was cultivating when her identity jade token started to tremble. This fellow could not help but frown. It was time for the sect mission again. How troublesome. Actually, this fellow was willing to go out for a stroll, but Tower Master Luochen had never given up. He might take the opportunity to capture her, so this fellow did not want to go on any damn sect mission for the time being. However, as a sect disciple, he could only listen to the sect's arrangements. Even if he was an inner disciple, he still had to carry out sect missions, just less than outer disciples. Yun Chujio reluctantly left the courtyard and came to the bounty hall. When she received the mission file, Yun Chujio was quite surprised to find that Zhang Li's name appeared in her group. Previously, Zhang Li had not been allowed to go out for a long time because he had been possessed by the devil. Why was he allowed to go out on a mission this time? And coincidentally, he was in the same group as her? There couldn't be anything fishy going on here, right? Yun Chujio went to look at the remaining 8 members. Other than Zhao Hui, who was considered an acquaintance, the other 7 names were unfamiliar and did not ring a bell. She looked at the mission again and heaved a sigh of relief. This mission was not difficult. Lai Yan wanted them to go to the Raging Flame Mountain Range to collect earth fire. The Raging Flame Mountain Range was only a few hundred li away from the Nameless Sword sect. Moreover, the major forces were all there to collect earth fire. They were not afraid that the 9 pavilions would take her away. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks, perhaps it was just a coincidence that Zhang Li and her were arranged to be in a group? Yun Chujio pondered as she walked out of the bounty hall. Not long after she walked out, she heard someone calling her from behind. She turned around and saw that the person calling her was Zhao Hui. "Junior Sister Yun, can we talk in private?" Zhao Hui said with a worried expression. Yun Chujio raised her eyebrows and immediately followed Zhao Hui to a secluded place. "Junior Sister Yun, I heard that you are quite familiar with Martial Uncle Zhang Li?" Zhao Hui asked probingly. Yun Chujio nodded. "Previously, we were locked up together in the Nameless Ancestral Master's cave abode for a few days, so we don't have much of a relationship."
Why?
"Is there something wrong with this mission?" Zhao Hui laughed bitterly. "Of course there's something wrong, something very wrong. Do you know why Martial Uncle Zhang Li was demoted to an outer sect disciple back then? It was because of an accident that happened when they went to collect earth fire. Other than Martial Uncle Zhang and Martial Uncle Wan, all 5 of their personal disciples died. This caused a huge sensation in the entire northern continent. After all, the personal disciples of the sect are the future pillars of the sect." Yun Chujio frowned. "I heard that collecting the earth fire is very simple, isn't it? It's fine to use a special method to collect it when we get there. How did we lose 5 personal disciples?"
Zhao Hui sighed.
"Junior Sister Yun, you might not know this, but the fire spirit beasts that live in the Blazing Flame Mountain Range are divided into 2 types. One is an ordinary fire spirit beast, and the other is a king-level fire spirit beast." Lai Yan was stunned. Yun Chujio was taken aback. She asked curiously, "Aren't fire spirit beasts exotic beasts? Why is there such a difference?" Chapter 3879 King Fire Spirit Beast. When she mentioned fire spirit beasts, Yun Chujio couldn't help but think of her 9 fire spirit beasts. It wasn't that she was heartless, but that the fire spirit beasts were special and couldn't be carried around with her. When she was safe and sound in the future, she would definitely think of a way to bring them to her side. Zhao Hui smiled and said, "Junior Sister Yun, you only know one, but you don't know the other 2. Exotic beasts also have levels, so fire spirit beasts are naturally divided into ordinary and king. Ordinary fire spirit beasts are a little timid. They hide in the depths of the mountain range and rarely show themselves. They also don't take the initiative to attack humans, so we usually collect earth fire produced by ordinary fire spirit beasts. However, king fire spirit beasts are different. Their territorial awareness is very strong, and they don't allow anyone to go near their territory, let alone collect earth fire. Yun Chuju nodded, but this was understandable. After all, the towering sky continent was much more advanced than the Qing Xian continent, so it was natural for them to have a better understanding of fire spiritual beasts. Zhao Hui continued, "Of course, the quality of the two types of earth fire is very different. Of course, the king fire spiritual beast's earth fire is better, but for their own safety, no one has any intention of going after the king fire spiritual beast's earth fire." However, 5 years ago, Uncle Master Zhang Li insisted on doing things his own way. He just had to bring Uncle Master Wan and the others to the King Fire Spirit Beast's territory to collect earth fire. This angered the King Fire Spirit Beast and caused a huge disaster. Logically speaking, with such a past, the Bounty Hall should not have allowed Uncle Master Zhang to do the task of collecting earth fire. Wasn't this poking people's hearts? Most importantly, the other 7 people who went on this mission were more or less related to the 5 direct disciples who died. Junior Sister Yun, do you think this is a coincidence? Yun Chujiu frowned. It was obvious that someone had deliberately arranged this. The mastermind was either Wan Qingba or Zhuang Hong. Could it be that they wanted to take the opportunity to get rid of Zhang Li and her? Zhao Hu's face was full of worry. When he saw the mission file, his head buzzed. This mission was definitely muddy water, but he could not refuse the sect mission, so he could only come to Yun Chujiu to discuss it. Come and read on our website Wuxiao World site. Thanks. Although Yun Chujiu had let the nightmare beast tamper with part of Zhao Hu's memories about the incident at the Fallen Goose Mountain Village, the remaining memories were enough for Zhao Hui to recognize Yun Chujiu's ability, so he came to her to discuss this matter. Yun Chujiu thought for a moment, then said, "Since the mission has been given, there is no possibility of changing it. When the time comes, we will act according to the circumstances." Zhao Hui could not help but feel a little disappointed. He thought that Yun Chujiu would have some countermeasures, so he could only sigh and leave. Yun Chujiu narrowed her eyes and strolled to Zhang Li's courtyard. Zhang Li saw that Yun Chujiu did not show any surprise. Apparently, he had guessed the purpose of Yun Chujiu's visit. "Marshal Uncle Zhang, tell me in detail what happened 5 years ago." Yun Chujiu went straight to the point. Zhang Li had a pained expression on his face. Even though 5 years had passed, he was still constantly tormented by guilt and self-blame. 5 years ago, Zhang Li could be said to be in the limelight. He was the leader of his generation. Wan Qingba and he had always had a good relationship. The two of them often went on missions together. At that time, a relatively simple mission like collecting earth fire was not the place for a true disciple. However, Wan Qingba encouraged Zhang Li to say that he wanted to see what the fire spirit beast looked like. Zhang Li was driven by curiosity and agreed. The manager of the bounty hall naturally would not offend a true disciple, so he gave the original task of an outer disciple to Zhang Li and a few other true disciples. Chapter 3880. The cause of Wan Pengcheng's father's death. After accepting the mission, Zhang Li immediately led his junior brothers to the Raging Flame mountain range in high spirits. Lai Yan was the first person Zhang Li had met. At the beginning, Zhang Li had only intended to gather earth fire in the area of ordinary fire spirit beasts. He had no intention of going to the area of king fire spirit beasts. Their luck was very good. Not only did they successfully gather earth fire, but they were also lucky enough to see an ordinary fire spirit beast. Zhang Li and the others were all very excited. Just as Zhang Li was planning to bring his junior brothers back to the Nameless Sword sect, Wan Qingba kept mentioning the king fire spirit beast, whether intentionally or not. He also said that if the Nameless Sword sect could obtain the king fire spirit beast's earth fire, then it would definitely be of great benefit to sword forging. It was simply a great meritorious service to the Nameless Sword sect. It was just that no one had dared to try it. It was really a pity. Zhang Li was originally proud and arrogant. After being instigated by Wan Qingba, his blood immediately rushed to his head. He immediately decided to go to the King Fire Essence Beasts area to take a look. The other few successive disciples were also extremely curious about the King Fire Essence Beast. Moreover, they were the proud sons of heaven and were also very proud. They immediately hit it off. On the contrary, when Wan Qingba saw that Zhongli really wanted to go to the King Fire Essence Beasts area, he kept trying to dissuade him. However, his dissuasion was more like a provocation, which strengthened the determination of Zhongli and the others. Although Zhongli and the others were proud and arrogant, they were not fools. Therefore, they only looked around the outer area of the King Fire Spirit Beast to probe, and did not enter the territory of the King Fire Spirit Beast. Unexpectedly, even though they were in the outer area, they still attracted 3 King Fire Spirit Beasts and began to attack them in a very violent manner. After a fierce battle, only Zhongli and Wan Qingba were lucky enough to escape, and the other 5 core disciples all died. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. Zhongli's expression became even more pained when he said this. It was as if he saw the scene of his 5 junior brothers being killed again, even though he had now realized that he had been tricked by Wan Qingba. But if it wasn't for his pride, it wouldn't have resulted in such a tragedy. Then how did you and Wan Qingba escape? Yun Shujiu asked. I have a defensive immortal artifact that my master gave me, which saved my life. As for Wan Qingba, maybe it's because he has something to save his life. After all, Elder One is quite rich. Zhongli said with uncertainty. Yun Shujiu nodded. She suddenly remembered something and asked curiously, I heard that Wan Qingba is Wan Pengcheng's uncle. What about Wan Pengcheng's father? 6 years ago, Wan Pengcheng's father died during a mission. At that time, Elder One was heartbroken. Fortunately, he still had Wan Qingba and Wan Pengcheng. Later on, he gradually calmed down. Yun Shujiu touched her chin. Oh my god, it sounds like this sect mission is really dangerous. Why do people always lose their lives because of it? Zhongli smiled bitterly and said, the path of cultivation is to fight with the heavens, so it is naturally very dangerous. Wan Qingba is really lucky. When Wan Pengcheng's father was in trouble, he was also there, so he was lucky to save his life. Yun Shujiu asked curiously, then how did Wan Pengcheng's father die? Although Zhongli wondered why Yun Shujiu was so interested in Wan Pengcheng's father, he still answered, I am not sure about the specific situation, but it seems that he was also bitten to death by a demonic beast. In the end, not even his body was left behind. Yun Shujiu's heart moved. Wan Qingba had escaped death twice, and the dead were both attacked by demonic beasts. Was this just a coincidence, or was there another mystery behind it? Yun Shujiu secretly shook her head again. Wan Pengcheng's father was Wan Qingba's biological brother, so how could he harm his own biological brother? She must be thinking too much. Chapter 3881. Liyan Mountain Range. Yun Shujiu temporarily put down the doubts in her heart. With a faint smile, she said to Zhongli, Martial Uncle Zhang, you probably know that many of the people who went on this mission together are related to those few true disciples who passed away. I'm afraid that they will make things difficult for you during the mission.
Can you bear it?
If you feel that you can't bear it, then I'll give you an idea. You can pretend to be possessed again. I'm afraid that the bounty hall won't dare to let you go on the mission. Zhongli laughed bitterly. What's there to be unable to bear? This is what I should bear. Moreover, if I can't even bear this, how can I fight against Wan Qingba? Yun Shujiu had already expected this, so she did not try to persuade Lai Yan any further. She only asked about the situation in the Raging Flame Mountain Range, and then hopped back to her own courtyard. The next day, Yun Shujiu arrived at the meeting place on time. Yun Shujiu secretly looked at the other 7 disciples. They were indeed unfamiliar, but their relationship seemed to be very good. They gathered together and chatted cheerfully. When they saw Yun Shujiu, the 7 people didn't say anything. It was as if they were blind. Only Zhao Hui nodded to Yun Shujiu as a form of greeting. A moment later, Zhongli also arrived. When the 7 people saw Zhongli, their faces instantly darkened. Each of them glared at Zhongli, as if they wished they could tear Zhongli into pieces. One of the disciples, called Yuan Qi, said in a strange tone, "Yo, isn't this the famous martial Uncle Zhang? You're the outstanding disciple of our nameless sword sect. How did you end up on a mission with U.S. Outer Court disciples? Come and read on our website, Wuxia World site." "Thanks immediately," a disciple called Han Jie said in disdain. "What outstanding disciple? He's just an Outer Court disciple now, yet he still has the face to live. He's simply unscrupulous. Back then, my uncle treated him well from the bottom of his heart, but he was actually killed by him. If it wasn't for the sect leader protecting him, such a person should have been expelled from the sect. If it wasn't for him, would we still be outer sect disciples? Perhaps we would have become inner sect disciples long ago." The other few people also echoed one after another. The reason why they hated Zhongli so much was actually very little because of the loss of their loved ones, but because the loss of a true disciple was a great loss to them and their family. It must be known that a true disciple would most likely become an elder of the sect in the future. This would be very beneficial to the family, but now it had all become a bubble. Therefore, they naturally hated Zhongli to the bone. Zhongli's face was a little pale. Even though he was mentally prepared for this, hearing these words, he was still tormented by self-blame and guilt. At this moment, Yun Chujio said lightly, "It's getting late. Let's hurry up and set off." Han Jie glared at Yun Chujio. "A dog with a mouse is meddling in other people's business." "Oh, right, we've already discussed it. The leader of this mission is Senior Brother Yuan, so we have to listen to Senior Brother Yuan's arrangements. If anyone doesn't listen to the arrangements, when we come back to report, we'll teach them a lesson." Yun Chujio couldn't be bothered to argue with such an idiot, so she didn't say anything. Yuan Qi said a few words with a proud expression before summoning his flying spirit tool. An hour later, everyone had no choice but to get off the flying spirit tool. Because flying was prohibited around the Raging Flame mountain range, they could only go there on foot. Lai Yan was the leader of this mission. Chapter 3882 was not a rare delicacy, although they were still dozens of miles away from Lai Yan mountain range. Everyone could already feel the obvious increase in temperature. As they got closer and closer to Lai Yan mountain range, their foreheads began to be covered with fine beads of sweat, and soon, their bodies were also soaked in sweat. Yun Chujio had beads spat out from Guai Chao on her body, so she did not feel any discomfort. Zhongli's spiritual power was much higher than Yuan Qi and the others, so he was not as embarrassed as they were. Yuan Qi saw this and felt rather unbalanced, so he started to ridicule Zhongli again. The others also followed suit. Although Zhongli's face was still a little pale, he seemed to have gotten used to it, so it was not a big deal. Yun Chujio complained in her heart. This Zhongli only had a good character and felt that he was in the wrong, so he just accepted it. Otherwise, whether it was seniority or spiritual power, Zhongli would have more than enough time to deal with this bunch of idiots and let them do whatever they wanted. However, she didn't know what these idiots were planning. She didn't think that their goal was just to mock Zhongli verbally. Finally, everyone arrived at the place where the earth fire was gathered. The people of Xuanji's sect were gathering the earth fire. Yuan Qi went over to greet them and then instructed everyone to gather the earth fire. The earth fire was extremely hot, so naturally, everyone wouldn't use their hands to gather it. Instead, they would set up several arrays and place the special containers that stored the earth fire in them. When the time was up, they would close the arrays. Therefore, the three of them started to collect the earth fire in groups. Needless to say, Yun Chujio was naturally in a group with Zhongli and Zhao Hui. The remaining 6 people were divided into 2 groups. As for Yuan Qi, he was patrolling around and did not have to do any personal work. Come and read on our website, Wuxia World site. Thanks, Zhao Hui had done similar missions before, so he was very familiar with it. After activating the array, he said to Yun Chujio and Zhongli, "Marshal Uncle Zhang, Junior Sister Yun, we will just stand guard by the side." Perhaps it was because he remembered the past, so Zhongli agreed in a low voice and lowered his head silently. On the other hand, Yun Chujio was chatting and laughing with Zhao Hui. She even took out some peanuts and spiritual potatoes and placed them near the earth fire to roast. The little silver snake in Yun Chujia's sleeve pocket felt a little sour. What was so funny? What was there to talk about? How shallow. Besides, what was so good about roasted peanuts and roasted spiritual potatoes? Even I don't want to eat them. Just as a certain someone was thinking about it, a few peeled peanuts were thrown into his sleeve. A certain someone hesitated for a moment, but still ate them. HMPH, he didn't like to eat them, he just didn't want to waste them. The speed of gathering earth fire was relatively slow, so Yun Chujio and the others had to stay here for at least 3 days. The matter progressed very smoothly, and 2 days passed very quickly. On the 3rd day, the Xuanji sect had finished collecting the earth fire and left, leaving only 10 people from the Nameless Sword sect. They only needed to stay for another day, and they could return to the Nameless Sword sect the next morning. Zhao Hui became a little nervous. He felt that Yuan Shi and the others were going to make a move. However, in the past 2 days, Yuan Shi and the others did not do anything other than ridicule him. Could it be that he was thinking too much? That night, Han Jie covered his stomach and said that he wanted to go to the toilet. He asked Yuan Shi to cover for him. Yuan Shi had always been on good terms with him, so he agreed readily. Yun Chujia's eyes flashed. She also covered her stomach and shouted that she wanted to go to the toilet. Zhao Hui looked at her speechlessly. He thought that this junior sister Yun was good in every way, but she was too careless. Chapter 3883. Why did you light up the smoke? Yuan Shi said a few words in a weird tone, and the others agreed with him. After a while, they waved their hands, indicating that Yun Chujio could go. Yun Chujio, naturally, didn't really go to the bathroom. She felt that there was something wrong with Han Jie, so she wanted to go and see what was going on. Yun Chujio restrained her aura and quickly chased after the direction where Han Jie had left. After turning a bend in the mountain, Yun Chujio saw smoke rising not far away, while Han Jie stood at the side with a cold smile. Yun Chujio's heart sank, and she shouted, Han Jie, what are you doing? Han Jie was so scared that he shivered. When he turned around and saw Yun Chujio, a guilty look flashed across his eyes. What do you mean? What am I doing? I came here to take a look after I went to the toilet and found that there was smoke here. Instead, it was you. What are you doing here? Yun Chujio sniffed the smoke and did not notice that there was anything special added to it. However, it was obvious that Han Jie did not have good intentions when he lit up the smoke in the middle of the night. Could it be that he was sending a message to someone? Yun Chujio was too lazy to waste her breath on him. She ordered Xiao Hanio to curse him. Then, she took advantage of the time when he was staggering to imprison his spiritual power and knocked him unconscious. Then, she quickly splashed water on the withered grass that was emitting smoke. Only when the withered grass stopped emitting smoke did she drag Han Jie back like a dead dog. Yuan Shi and the others were stunned at first, then they flew into a rage. Yun Chujio, what did you do to Han Jie? Do you want to harm your fellow disciples? Yun Chujio sneered. Harm my fellow disciples? I was about to ask you guys. Han Jie just lit a pile of smoke over at Shanwan Air. What does he want? Do you know anything about it? Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks Yuan Shi and the others were at a loss. Then they said angrily, what lighting the smoke? What do you mean do we know anything about it? You are talking nonsense. Hurry up and release Han Jie. Yun Chujio saw that Yuan Shi and the others did not look like they were lying. She could not help but feel suspicious. Could it be that Han Jie was the only one who did this? On second thought, she was really stupid. Whether it was Wan Qingba or Zhuang Hong, they would probably only bribe one person for insurance. Otherwise, the risk of leakage would be too great. It seemed that Yuan Shi and the others were just a bunch of unlucky people. Yun Chujio thought of this and splashed cold water on Han Jie to wake him up. Han Jie immediately shouted, Senior brother Yuan, you guys have to make a decision for me. This Yun Chujio knocked me out for no reason. She is taking revenge on me. She is showing off to you guys. Yuan Shi and the others were immediately furious. Yun Chujio, what are you trying to do? If you don't release Han Jie immediately, We will not be polite. Yun Chuzhou couldn't be bothered to look at these idiots. If it wasn't for the fact that Han Jie was a sect disciple, she would have directly searched his soul. She couldn't be bothered to waste her breath on them. Martial Uncle Zhang, Senior Brother Zhao, I'll leave these people to you. Don't let them disturb me, Yun Chuzhou said coldly. Although Zhang Li and Zhao Hui were also dumbfounded, they still listened to Yun Chuzhou's words and stood in front of Yuan Qi and the others. Even though Yuan Qi and the others usually mocked and ridiculed Zhang Li, if they were to really make a move, they would be terrified. Zhang Li was a true disciple, and his seniority was one generation higher than theirs. How could they be a match for Zhang Li? Yun Chuzhou looked at Han Jie with a cold gaze. Then she took the large kitchen knife and cut his leg. Tell me, what do you want to do? If you don't tell me, I will help you sprinkle some chili to stop the bleeding. Chapter 3884 had been sold, yet she was still counting the money for him. Han Jie cried out in pain. He had never thought that Yun Chuzhou would be so ruthless. She would really force a confession out of him. Yuan Qi and the others were also shocked. Just as they were about to stop him, they were stopped by Zhang Li and Zhao Hui. Zhao Hui said with a cold face, "Everyone, junior sister Yun wouldn't do this for no reason. There must be something wrong here. Please calm down." While Yuan Qi and the others were hesitating, Yun Chuzhou had already sprinkled the chili in her hand onto Han Jie's wound. Han Jie wasn't even shouting at them anymore. "Senior Brother Yuan, you can't just ignore me. We are brothers. You can't just stand by and do nothing." Han Jie shouted loudly. When Yuan Qi and the others heard that, they couldn't be bothered anymore. They cursed Yun Chuzhou as they drew their swords and started fighting with Zhang Li and Zhao Hui. Yun Chuzhou's eyes darkened. She had thought that they were all from the same sect and wanted to save their lives. Since they were courting death, then they should just wait for death. Thinking of this, Yun Chuzhou no longer cared about Han Jie, who was wailing like a ghost. Instead, she said to Zhang Li and Zhao Hui, "Martial Uncle Zhang, Senior Brother Zhao, let's leave this place immediately." Zhang Li and Zhao Hui didn't understand, but when they saw Yun Chuzhou's determined eyes, they didn't hesitate anymore. They faked a move and jumped to the side. Just as the three of them were about to leave, Han Jie shouted angrily, "Senior Brother Yuan, we can't let them go just like that. They might be betraying the sect. You have to catch them." When Yuan Qi and the others heard that, they immediately surrounded Yun Chuzhou and the others. "You can't leave. If you want to leave, you have to wait until tomorrow morning to return to the sect with us." Yun Chuzhou was so angry that she was about to explode. Come and read on our website, Wuxia World site. Thanks. How could the nameless sword sect have such a bunch of idiots? They even helped to count the money after being sold. They really wanted to kill them. It seemed that they could only let Han Jie tell the truth. Otherwise, this bunch of idiots would still drag them down. Hence, she gave Zhao Hui and Zhang Li a look. The two of them immediately engaged in a battle with Yuan Qi and the others while Yun Chuzhou leaped to Han Jie's side. Yun Chuzhou looked at Han Jie with a deep gaze. "Aren't you going to say it? Then I'll cut off your right leg. Even if we don't live, you'll be crippled for the rest of your life." As Yun Chuzhou said that, she raised the big kitchen knife in her hand. Han Jie's face instantly turned pale. If you really do that, you'll be punished by the sect rules. You'll be expelled from the sect. Our Han family will not forgive you." Yun Chuzhou sneered. She raised her hand, and the knife fell. Han Jie let out a miserable cry. He watched as the large kitchen knife cut into his right leg. As long as Yun Chuzhou used more strength, his right leg would not be able to survive. He was terrified. I'll say it. It was Martial Uncle Juan who asked me to do it. He asked me to wait until all the other sects have left and let out the smoke. But I really don't know what exactly he wants to do." Han Jie cried. The moment Han Jie said that, Yuan Qi and the others were instantly dumbfounded. Yun Chuzhou was actually telling the truth? Han Jie really released the smoke secretly? Yuan Qi was simply unable to contain his anger. "Han Jie, are you telling the truth? You actually betrayed us." Han Jie did not know whether it was pain or fear. His face was pale as he said, I didn't betray you. I just released the smoke. I really don't know anything else. Yun Chujiu looked at the angry Yuan Qi and the others and said, he refused to tell the truth, so I had to search his soul. I hope you can testify for me when you return to the sect. Chapter 3885 was about to turn them into earth-fire materials. Yun Chujiu was about to perform a soul search. Han Jie was scared out of his wits. If his soul was searched, he would turn into a fool. Of course, he did not know that Yun Chujiu was just scaring him. After all, soul searching was a big taboo to fellow disciples. She would not do it as a last resort. Ill talk. Uncle Master once said that as long as I release the smoke, someone will come and kill you. After that, when I go back, I'll lie and say that you were attacked by a king-level fire spirit beast. Although Han Jie's face was full of fear, he thought to himself that the reinforcements might arrive soon. At that time, he would definitely make this bitch's life worse than death. Yuan Qi and the others simply couldn't believe their ears. Yuan Qi said angrily, Han Jie, we've always been on good terms. Why did you do this? Han Jie said with a guilty conscience, because Uncle Master Wan promised me that after the matter is done, he would think of a way to let me enter the inner sect. I also had no choice. Yuan Qi and the others were furious. What did he mean by no other choice? This was him forgetting his loyalty for the sake of profit. To think that they still treated him as a friend. Yuan Qi and the others were both ashamed, so they naturally would not object. They immediately did not bother to undo the formation on the ground and hurriedly wanted to leave this place. However, they were soon surprised to see 3 balls of fire rapidly approaching from afar. What were those? Zhang Li's face showed great fear. King-level fire spirit beast. Those are king-level fire spirit beasts. We can't survive. As the 3 huge balls of fire got closer and closer, they finally saw clearly that they were 3 fiery red demonic beasts. Come and read on our website Wuxiao World site. Thanks. Han Jie was so scared that he was trembling. He couldn't help but exclaim, No. Martial Uncle Wan clearly said that he would send someone over. Why are the king-level fire spirit beasts here? Yun Chujiu snorted coldly, Idiot. Even if he sent someone over, do you think you still have a chance to live? The moment you agreed, you were destined to die. Zhao Hui said with a trembling voice, Don't bother about him. Let's run quickly, or we will really die. Only then did everyone come back to their senses and ran forward with all their might. However, they didn't run far before they had no choice but to stop. Because the path was blocked by the other 3 king-level fire essence beasts, they had no way to escape. Yuan Qi and the others were so scared that their legs could not help but go soft. They felt extremely regretful in their hearts. If they had listened to Yun Chuji's words and did not waste any time, they might have already escaped. However, there was no medicine for regret in this world. At this moment, they heard Han Jie laughing loudly. Han Jie have finally become an inner disciples. Han Jie have finally become the #1 in the world. Everyone looked at each other. This Han Jie had actually gone mad? Yun Chuji's heart was like a beeping dog. She had originally wanted to bring this Han Jie back as a witness, but now he had actually gone mad. Even with Yuan Qi and the others as witnesses, it was likely that they would not be able to prove Wan Qingbao's crime. However, the most urgent matter now was the 6 king-level fire spirit beasts in front of them. If they did not think of a countermeasure as soon as possible, they would become earth-fire materials. The 6 king fire spirit beasts gradually approached, and they looked very agitated. Yuan Qi and the others felt despair in their hearts. It was over. They really couldn't survive. Zhang Li bitterly thought that perhaps this was fate. Back then, he hadn't been bitten to death by the fire spirit beast, but now, his retribution had finally arrived. However, he looked at Yun Chujiu beside him and couldn't help but feel very guilty. This little girl was the only one who had shown kindness to him other than his master. He didn't think that he would have to die here today. Zhongli felt that there was no possibility of escaping. Back then, even the 7 core disciples couldn't withstand 3 king-level fire spirit beasts. Now that they were facing 6 king-level fire spirit beasts, there was no room for them to resist. Just as Zhongli was thinking, he heard Yun Chuzhou beside him clearly shout, "Splash water, splash cold water on their bodies." Zhongli and the others were simply dumbfounded. Splash water? What kind of joke was this? This is a king-level fire spirit beast, not a flame. What's the use of splashing water on them? While they were stunned, Yun Chuzhou had already splashed cold water on the 6 king-level fire spirit beasts. The 6 king-level fire spirit beasts were all stunned. What kind of trick was this? What kind of trick was this little human girl playing? As they were too surprised, they didn't know how to react and just stood there in a daze. Zhongli and the rest took a look. Heavens, it was really useful. Hence, they poured all the water from their storage rings onto the 6 king fire spirit beasts. After the initial shock, the 6 king fire spirit beasts finally regained their senses. They were so angry that they started twitching. These humans were too stupid. Did they think that they would be extinguished by the water just because they were called fire spirit beasts? Eat them! Just as the 6 fire spirit beasts were about to attack, Yun Chuzhou shouted, "Stop! All of you stop! I have something important to say." The 6 fire spirit beasts thought, "Stop just because you said so?
Who the hell are you?"
Shameless. However, they finally stopped because Yun Chuzhou released a hua. Everyone only heard Yun Chuzhou say something about a 10,000-year-old single dog. Then, they saw the little piglet turn into a big black pig? Not to mention the 6 king-level fire spirit beasts. Even Zhongli and the others were dumbstruck. This was a spirit beast? And it could also turn into a big spirit beast? Yun Chuzhou put her hands behind her back and said to the 6 king-level fire spirit beasts with a calm expression, "See? We are not to be trifled with. Do you know why I splashed water on you? There is a big mystery behind this." The 6 king fire spirit beasts looked at each other before looking at Da Hua warily. Although the spiritual qi of these people was low, this spirit beast did not seem to be normal. Could it be that the remaining people also had spirit beasts? Yun Chuzhou took advantage of the moment when the 6 king fire spirit beasts were hesitating and continued, "We splashed water to save you. Don't you feel that after being splashed, your frustration has lessened? Didn't you realize that you are poisoned? You have only met a kind person like me. If you had met someone else, you would have taken advantage of the situation and killed all of you." The 6 king-level fire spirit beasts began to check their bodies in fear. Although they did not notice anything unusual, they were indeed very frustrated just now. Could it be that they were really poisoned? Yun Chuzhou curled her lips. Think about it. Do you usually go to the territory of ordinary fire spiritual beasts? Aren't you afraid that someone will take advantage of this and steal your earth fire? Moreover, we usually stay out of each other's way. We don't have any good stones to eat. Why are you attacking us? Is it because I'm good-looking? After hearing Yun Chuzhou's words, although the 6 king-level fire spirit beasts felt that this little girl was too shameless, they also felt that what she said made sense. That's right, they almost never left their own territory. Why did they come here in a daze? Yun Chuzhou saw that the 6 king-level fire spirit beast's emotions were somewhat eased, and she continued, "6 sirs, there must be a conspiracy here. There must be someone who wants to harm you. You must know that this is not your territory, but the territory of the ordinary fire spirit beasts. If you eat us here, the major sects will think that you won't even let us take the earth fire of the ordinary fire spirit beasts. This is a serious problem. People are afraid of forcing horses to ride them. At that time, the 6 major sects will probably have no choice but to declare war on you. It's true that you are very powerful, but it's hard for 2 fists to fight against 4 hands. In the end, I'm afraid that you won't be able to escape the fate of being bound by a contract. I believe that with the wisdom of all the lords, you will be able to determine that what I said is true. What is more important than freedom? Therefore, all the lords should return as soon as possible. Otherwise, there might already be someone stealing your earth fire. The king fire spiritual beasts were already suspicious of the situation. Now that they heard Yun Chuji's analysis, they felt that someone was trying to harm them. That's right. If they were to hurt someone here, those human cultivators might break the balance and contract with them. At that time, it would be too late for them to regret. The 6 fire spiritual beasts looked at each other. They had no interest in eating humans. Previously, they were only attracted by a scent that made them very annoyed. Now, there was naturally no need for them to stay. Therefore, they let out a few low growls before turning around and leaving. Yuan Shi and the others sat on the ground. Oh God! They thought that they would not survive. They did not expect that Yun Chujio would actually let these king-level fire spirit beasts off after a round of kissing. This was simply unbelievable. At this moment, they heard Yun Chujio stretching her neck and shouting, "My lords, wait a moment, I still have something to say." Yuan Shi and the others were so scared that they almost jumped up and covered Yun Chujio's mouth. Are you fucking crazy? It wasn't easy for those malefactors to leave. What more do you have to say? If you don't say it, will you die? The 6 king-level fire spirit beasts were also somewhat puzzled, but they still stopped and turned around, looking at Yun Chujio with an impatient expression. They were still in a hurry to go back. What else did this little girl have to do? Yun Chujio ran forward a distance and was only 30 feet away from the 6 king-level fire spirit beasts. Yuan Shi and the others all felt that Yun Chujio was most likely crazy. She actually took the initiative to go forward and die. What was wrong with her brain? Pan DN0VE1 COM, sirs. I am here to deliver medicinal pills to all of you. Since that evil person intended to harm all of you, perhaps he would act again. Therefore, these soul-cleansing pills are given to all of you. If you feel that something is wrong, you can consume them to detoxify the poison. As she spoke, Yun Chujio took out a basin of medicinal pills from her storage ring and placed it on the ground. Not to mention Yuan Shi and the others, even the 6 king fire spirit beasts were dumbfounded. Since when did humans use basins to store medicinal pills? However, one of the king fire spirit beasts still kept the basin of medicinal pills into its storage space. The instincts of demonic beasts were much more sensitive than humans. They vaguely felt that this little girl in front of them would not harm them. The 6 king-level fire spirit beasts nodded slightly at Yun Chujio before turning around to leave. Yuan Shi and the others finally heaved a sigh of relief in their hearts. Although they felt that Yun Chujio's actions were a little unnecessary, it was fortunate that the king-level fire spirit beasts were about to leave. Unexpectedly, Yun Chujio continued, "Sirs, please wait a little longer. I still have a presumptuous request." Yuan Shi and the others were going crazy. "You have another unkind request? You are courting death." The 6 king fire spirit beasts were also stunned. Although they were a little impatient, they still stopped in their tracks. Some people say that your king fire spirit beast's earth fire is 100 times stronger than the earth fire of an ordinary fire spirit beast. However, some people also say that this is just a rumor. Actually, your king fire spirit beast is just a little bigger in size. In fact, it is no different from an ordinary fire spirit beast. Perhaps the earth fire you produce is even worse than an ordinary fire spirit beast. The 6 king fire spirit beasts immediately howled in anger. What? They were inferior to those little brats. It was simply a great humiliation. Yuan Shi and the others were so frightened by the angry roars of the king fire spirit beasts that they were about to cry. It's over, it's over. This time, it was completely over. This Yun Chujio really had a good death. If they had known earlier, even if they had offended her, they would have covered her mouth with a rag to prevent her from courting death. Right at this moment, they heard Yun Chujio angrily say, "When I heard the latter version, I directly beat up the person who spoke. Pand DN0VE1 CM, therefore, your earth fire is definitely 1,000 times stronger than the earth fire of an ordinary fire spirit beast." No, 10,000 times. When the 6 king fire spirit beasts heard Yun Chujia's words, they immediately felt a sense of comfort in their hearts. Yes, this little girl was right. Their earth fire was 10,000 times stronger than the earth fire of those little brats. That, my lords, although I believe in you, some people are short-sighted and can only be shut up unless they have evidence. Can I follow you to collect some earth fire? Just a little bit. I just want to shut them up. Yun Chujio said, honestly. The 6 king fire spirit beasts looked at each other. In order to protect their reputation, it was not a big deal to let this little girl take a little bit of earth fire. After all, they had a lot of earth fire, so they were not short of a little bit. Thus, the leader of the king-level fire spirit beasts nodded and let out a low roar. Then, Yuan Qi and the others saw Yun Chujio follow behind the 6 king-level fire spirit beasts and jump away. A certain Jiu's dirty voice could still be heard from afar. Sirs, I have meat buns and spirit fruits here. Try them. Although they aren't as delicious as ores, it's not bad to change the taste occasionally. Sirs, your fur is really too good-looking. Can I touch it? There was only one thought in everyone's mind. Crazy. Crazy. This Yun Chujio had completely gone crazy. She actually had the audacity to want to go and collect the earth fire of a king-level fire spirit beast. Wasn't she sending herself to her death? Besides, why did she have to take such a risk? 15 minutes had passed, and an hour had passed. Yun Chujio still hadn't returned. Yuan Qi and the others had complicated expressions on their faces. They had the intention to return to the sect overnight, but they also felt that it was a little unfair. After all, it was Yun Chujio who had saved them. However, if Yun Chujio angered the 6 king-level fire spirit beasts and they came back, wouldn't they be dead? Soon, 2 hours had passed, but Yun Chujio still hadn't returned. Zhongli couldn't sit still anymore. He said in a low voice, I'll go over and take a look. If I'm not back in 2 hours, you guys can go back to the sect. Yuan Qi and the others had a better impression of Yun Chujio, but they were still indifferent to Zhongli. Hearing his words, they were a little surprised and looked at him in surprise. Only Zhao Hui answered, Martial Uncle Zhang, be careful. We will wait for your news. Okay, Zhongli promised, and then quickly rushed to the King Fire Spiritual Beasts area. Zhongli had already prepared for the worst. He thought that what he saw might be in Chujia's corpse, or even that there might not even be a corpse. There would only be clothes left at the scene. However, when he saw the scene in front of him, he felt that his eyes were most likely playing tricks on him. He saw Yun Chujio roasting meat at the edge of the King Fire Spirit Beast territory. As she roasted the meat, she boomed, Sirs, when you roast the meat in the future, remember to turn it over frequently. Also, when you roast it, sprinkle some seasonings on it so that the taste of the roasted meat will be delicious. What was going on? Zhongli felt as if his worldview had been refreshed. Wasn't this little girl here to gather earth fire? Why was she eating roasted meat with the King Fire Spirit Beast? Wasn't she afraid that the King Fire Spirit Beast would roast her like roasted meat? Zhongli finally calmed down after much difficulty. Only then did he see 3 earth fire gathering arrays placed not far away. From the looks of it, the little girl was planning to gather more earth fire. Was she stalling for time? Zhongli saw that the 6 King Fire Spirit Beasts didn't seem to be in a violent state, and his heart calmed down a little. At this time, Yun Chujio also saw Zhongli. She waved her claws at Zhongli. Martial Uncle Zhang, come over and eat some roasted meat. The moment Yun Chujio's words left her mouth, Zhongli saw the 6 King-level fire spirit beasts staring at him, as if they had killed their father. It was as if they wanted to eat him, if he dared to agree. Zhongli immediately shook his head like a rattledrum. His voice trembled slightly as he said, No, you guys eat. I will go back now. When the 6 King-level fire spirit beasts heard what he said, they let out a low growl. That meant, at least you know what's good for you. If you dare to snatch my roasted meat, I will eat you. Zhongli's legs could not help but feel a little weak. He simply admired Yun Chujio's courage. She actually talked and laughed cheerfully in front of those behemoths. Her courage was not just ordinary. Yun Chuju, on the other hand, was still smiling like a flower. All right, then Marshal Uncle Zhang, you can go back first. I will stay with the adults for a while more. Zhongli was heartbroken. This little girl didn't care about her life at all. It was fine to get some, but it looked like she was going to get a lot. Zhongli knew that it was useless to persuade her. If things went wrong, he might even anger those king-level fire spirit beasts, so he could only turn around and leave. Yun Chujio was still chatting with those king-level fire spirit beasts, but the little snake in her sleeve was already furious. This little rascal was getting more and more ridiculous. Previously, she had no way to fool these king-level fire spirit beasts, but since they were about to leave, she had to give them some pills. It was fine if she gave them pills, after all. It was to prevent these king-level fire spirit beasts from being used by others, but why did she have to come over and take the earth fire? Wasn't she being a demon? Perhaps it was because it was too angry. The small silver snake's body began to expand. Yun Chuju noticed that there was something unusual in her sleeve pouch and suspiciously took out the small silver snake from it. The 6 king-level fire spirit beasts thought that Yun Chuju was going to roast the snake for them to eat, and their faces were filled with disdain. This snake was too small. It was not enough to fill the gaps between their teeth. Yun Chuju saw that the small silver snake's body was bulging, and she was both curious and amused. Little perverted dragon, are you planning to turn into a frog? A certain being almost vomited blood from anger. It was already miserable enough for him to turn into a snake, but he still wanted to turn into a croaking what? At this moment, a certain being felt that the seal in his body seemed to have loosened a large piece. Just as he was getting excited, a dazzling light flashed in front of his eyes. A few breaths later, a certain being saw Yun Chuju in front of him with her mouth wide open. She stared at him with her mouth agape. The 6 king-level fire spirit beasts also had blank expressions on their faces. A certain someone frowned. Wait, frowned? A certain someone subconsciously lowered his head, and his mind went blank. Who am I? Where am I? What am I doing? Fuck, I'm running. For a moment, other than the sound of the meat being roasted, the scene was as quiet as a chicken. Suddenly, Yun Chuju, whose face was flushed red, swung her large kitchen knife. She cried out, "Little pervert, you're shameless. You actually turned into a gigolo and you're even naked. I must chop you to death today." At this moment, a certain someone was like a messy leaf in the wind. Should he explain that he was not a little pervert, or should he take advantage of the situation to blame the little pervert? However, before that, he had to put on his clothes. A certain someone took out his clothes from his storage ring and put them on while avoiding Yun Chuju's pursuit. He wished that he could find a hole and hide in it. Hei Xinjiu was stunned when she saw the storage ring that suddenly appeared on Di Baiming's hand. This shameless gua and sprinting man couldn't really be a gigolo, right? Prince Charming, is it really you? You, how did you turn into a snake? The legend of the white snake and Liao Zhai flashed through Yun Chuji's mind. Oh my, could it be that she and the gigolos were still in love with humans and beasts? Human-beast affinity? Di Baiming saw that things were already like this, so there was no way to hide it anymore. Besides, what could be more shameful than what had just happened? A certain someone who was scolding the heavens and the earth squeezed out 2 words from between his teeth. It's me. For a moment, the surroundings fell into a dead silence again. A certain someone was a little worried. The little rascal wouldn't despise him because he had turned into a snake, right? Also, if he had lied to her, would she be so angry that she wouldn't forgive him? However, a moment later, a certain Geo said in a low voice, "Prince Charming, you didn't wear any clothes when you turned into a human just now. Doesn't that mean that you've been running around naked in front of me all these days?" A certain Joe, damn it, I'm so embarrassed. I don't want to live anymore. A certain Geo felt that she could no longer pretend to be serious in front of the little rascal. No, she could no longer pretend to be aloof. This matter was a stain that he would never be able to wash away in this lifetime. If he had known earlier, he would have confessed to her earlier. This way, there wouldn't be such an awkward situation. At the very least, he wouldn't have let the 6 king fire spirit beasts see his embarrassing state. Thinking up to this point, a certain someone finally had a channel to vent his anger. He looked coldly at the 6 king fire spirit beasts. At this moment, the 6 king fire spirit beasts had a face full of shock and bewilderment. Oh my, they had become a living person. That man, was he a demonic beast in disguise? However, when they noticed that a certain king fire spirit beast was looking at them with killing intent in his eyes, they instantly felt as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. One of the king fire spirit beasts was more clever. It immediately ran into the earth fire. What a joke! If it didn't run, was it going to wait to be smacked to death? The other 5 king-level fire spirit beasts saw this and quickly jumped into the earth fire as well. Although Beiming was annoyed, he didn't lose his mind to enter the earth fire to chase after the 6 peeping beasts. He stood there with a cold face and didn't say a word. Hei Xinjiu originally didn't laugh out loud because she was worried about the self-esteem of a certain honored warrior, but she really couldn't hold it in anymore. She laughed so hard that her flowers shook and she almost rolled on the ground. A certain someone's face turned green and then white. He was so angry that he gritted his teeth. However, he could not bear to do anything to Yun Chujio, so he could only be angry with himself. A black gas seemed to be coming out from the top of a certain god's head. He hated Shui Wuji in his heart. If it wasn't for that Wu Ji's bad idea, would he have lost face in front of little Jiu? And that in Feng, he was simply brainless. Shui Wuji wanted him to do this, but he did it? Yun Chujio laughed so hard that she didn't have the strength to stand up. She sat on the ground and finally remembered the important matter. Prince Charming, how did you turn into a snake? Could it be that you're a snake demon? Snake demon? A certain someone. What if he really wants to strangle this fellow in front of him to death? Yun Chujio saw that Beiming did not say anything and thought that he had tacitly agreed. Hence, this fellow cupped his chin and said, "Looks like you are really a snake demon. Although this taste is a little too strong, my ability to accept it is not bad, so I will not despise you. However, you are a snake and I am a human. In the future, should I give birth to a baby or an egg?" A certain being. Give birth to babies? Eggs? He only wanted to be angry now. Prince Charming, will I give birth to a monster with the head of a snake or the body of a snake in the future? Otherwise, let's not give birth to babies and give birth to eggs. A certain being could not stand it anymore. He felt that if he did not do something, this little scoundrel, who could not keep his mouth shut, would definitely drive him mad. Therefore, a certain being directly pressed Hei Xinjiu, who was still chattering, to the ground and covered her mouth. Finally, everything became quiet. Suddenly, a certain being felt a flash of light in front of his eyes. Then, he found that he had turned into a small silver snake once again. Fuck. What's going on? A certain being was so angry that he directly swore. Why did he turn into a snake after kissing her? Hei Xinjiu was dumbfounded. No matter who was kissed by a snake, they would feel very confused. All right. Everything fell into a dead silence again, as if everything around them was frozen. A moment later, Yun Chujio looked at the small silver snake that was still lying on her body and said faintly, "Prince Charming, you ran away again." A certain someone subconsciously shrunk his body into his clothes that had become extremely huge. He felt that he could not live this life anymore. Yun Chujio and the small silver snake looked at each other. The small silver snake saw the deep curiosity in Hei Xinjiu's eyes, while Hei Xinjiu saw the deep sorrow in the small silver snake's eyes. A certain someone, this day was like a nightmare. Could he erase this memory? Prince Charming, don't worry. I used to think that you were a little pervert, so I treated you badly. Now that I know that you are you, I will definitely treat you well. Sigh, if I had known earlier, I wouldn't have let you eat mantus. I even said that I would castrate you. I almost ruined the happiness of the rest of my life. It was so close, a certain being only wanted to die now. His reputation was completely ruined. A certain being had also broken down. Yun Chujio could do whatever she wanted, but he did not say a word. He was anxious to find the reason why he had turned into a snake again. After looking inside, he finally found the reason. It turned out that the seal in his body had not been completely broken. He had only broken a part of it just now, so when the time was up, he had turned into a small silver snake again. It should have nothing to do with her kissing him. Seeing that the small silver snake had not made a sound, Yun Chujio picked up the small silver snake with a wicked smile. She said slyly, "Male god, TSK, haven't you always been stingy and didn't let me see your pot body? Now you are taking the initiative to run around in front of me. I didn't expect you to be such a male god." A certain god really wanted to become deaf now because that way he would not have to suffer from Zinjia's demonic voice piercing through his brain. However, he did not notice a trace of worry in Yun Chujio's eyes. She was only joking because she did not want Debaiming to be so sad. Although she did not know how Debaiming ended up like this, something must have gone wrong. She could still distract some gigolo's attention, or else it would not be good if he got into trouble. She remembered that when Infong handed the silver snake to her, the snake was very dispirited. It only closed its eyes all day long. At that time, the gigolo must have been very sad, right? She was too careless. If she had paid more attention, she might have noticed something abnormal. However, she never dreamed that the gigolo would turn into a snake. She recalled Buttface's abnormal behavior later on and was instantly furious. All right, this Buttface must have long known that the silver snake was a pretty boy. He had actually teamed up with the pretty boy to lie to her. When she returned to the Nameless Sword sect, she would definitely teach him a lesson. Yun Chujio continued blabbering and finally got to the point. "Prince Charming, tell me, what exactly is going on?" Debaiming had no need to hide it anymore, so he told her what happened. Because Yun Chujio was too flirtatious, the seal of 7 emotions and 6 desires was broken again and again, so the effect was greatly reduced. After Debaiming and Yun Chujio separated, the cold poison took effect again. He gritted his teeth and changed to a stronger sealing method in his memory, where he sealed the 7 emotions and 6 desires. However, he did not know if he remembered wrongly, or if something went wrong. In short, he turned into a small silver snake. In fact, to be exact, it should be a small silver dragon. However, because it was too small, it looked like a small snake. Yun Chujio blinked her eyes. "Prince Charming, isn't your spiritual beast a silver ice dragon? I guess it has something to do with you turning into a small silver dragon." Debaiming was stunned when he heard Yun Chujio's words. He really didn't think of this. Maybe little Joe was right. Could it be related to the spiritual beast? Yun Chujio suddenly thought of something. Fuck. The pretty boy's spiritual beast was a silver ice dragon. When something happened, it turned into a silver snake. Her spiritual beast was Dahua. If something happened to her, wouldn't she turn into a piglet? Thinking of this, Hei Shinjio suddenly felt bad. She comforted herself. She would not seal herself for no reason, so naturally, there would not be such an eyesore scene. It would definitely not appear. Yun Chujio shook her head and tried hard to clear the eyesore scene from her mind. She asked curiously, "Prince Charming, how did you turn into a human just now? Let's try again according to the method just now. Maybe we can completely remove the seal in your body." When Debaiming heard this, he immediately remembered what had happened before. The entire snake emitted a chilling aura. "Little Joe, you're simply too ridiculous. You're not a match for those 6 king-level fire spirit beasts at all. Why did you take the risk to come and take the earth fire? You're courting death," Yun Chujio said with an aggrieved expression. "I naturally did this for a reason. You also know that Lan Luochen is pressing me step by step. I need to quickly establish a foothold in the Nameless Sword sect. Therefore, I plan to bring the earth fire of these king-level fire spirit beasts back and think of a way to get a chance to participate in the inner sect selection. After becoming an inner sect disciple, I'll have more opportunities to interact with the higher-ups of the sect. Only then will I be able to plot against the 9 pavilions step by step. Baiming originally thought that Yun Chujio was greedy and playful. Now that he heard Yun Chujio's true purpose, he immediately felt both pity and guilt. He was really too incompetent. His enemy was too powerful. He had no way to stay by her side, nor could he take the risk to bring her along. Therefore, little Joe had suffered too much. He had let her down. Yun Chuju knew Baiming very well. She knew what he was thinking when she saw his eyes. She smiled mischievously and said, Prince Charming, don't worry. I love challenging things the most. Fighting with the heavens, fighting with the earth, and fighting with people is fun. I enjoy it. Don't worry, I will play with those old things sooner or later. How could Baiming not know that Yun Chujio was consoling him? A warm feeling flowed through his heart. There was a tinge of bitterness in the sweetness, and even the seal was loosened a lot. For a moment, the man and the snake looked at each other. They could see the deep love and determination in each other's eyes. No matter how difficult the road ahead was, as long as they had each other in their hearts, one day, they would be able to be together for a long time. This kind of deep affection and beautiful atmosphere was broken by the clicking sounds of a few king fire spirit beasts. It turned out that the 6 foodies weren't willing to let the roasted meat go to waste, so they secretly poked their heads out of the earth fire. Seeing that the terrifying man had turned into a small silver snake again, they felt at ease and boldly began to feast. A killing intent flashed through a certain honored warrior's vertical pupils. These fools looked at this honored warrior's pot body and actually still dared to appear. They were really courting death. Yun Chuju lowered her head and gently kissed the small silver snake. Prince Charming, face is really useless. You are not allowed to lie to me in the future. The certain being nodded and thought sadly in its heart, how could he still have any face now? Even the inside sun has no good. The 6 king-level fire spirit beasts were completely stimulated by Hei Xinjia's roasted meat. What the fuck? They had been bitterly gnawing on rocks for so many years. It was a waste of their lives. Therefore, Hei Xinjia relied on the meat buns, roasted ribs, and roasted chicken in her storage ring to make the 6 king-level fire spirit beasts promise Yun Chujio that they could use their food to exchange for their earth fire in the future. The next morning, Hei Xinjia went to Zhang Li and the others with the earth fire that she had gathered in satisfaction. Yun Chuju nodded. Yes, but I was afraid that you would be anxious, so I only gathered a little bit. I will come back to get more in the future when I have time. Zhao Hui and the others were dumbfounded. Come back again in the future? That was a king-level fire spiritual beast. Wasn't she afraid that those king-level fire spiritual beasts would devour her? However, they were in a hurry to return to the sect, so they didn't ask any more questions. They took the crazy Hanjie and left the raging flame mountain range. On the way back, Yuan Qi and the others couldn't help but curse Hanjie and Wan Qingba, who had ordered him to do so. They all clamored to return to the sect to seek justice. However, Yun Chujio said faintly, I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. This matter will definitely not be settled in the end because Han Jie has gone crazy. Even if we search his soul, it can't be used as evidence. We can't punish Wan Qingba with just our one-sided words. Moreover, he still has a good father. Elder Wan's influence in the sect is deeply intertwined. How can a few shrimps like us resist? Yuan Qi and the others were instantly dumbfounded. Yuan Qi said angrily, Then well, just let it go like this? What else can we do if we don't let it go like this? Forget about all of you. Back then, Uncle Master Zhang was framed by Wan Qingba and had a fate worse than death. Didn't he have to suffer as well? And those relatives of yours who died, wouldn't they also die in vain? Yun Chujio said with a cold smile. Yuan Qi was stunned and immediately retorted, My uncle died because Zhongli insisted on doing his own thing. What does this have to do with Wan Qingba? The others also echoed, looking at Zhang Li with unkind eyes. Yun Chujiu curled her lips. Are you really stupid, or are you pretending to be stupid? Were your relatives harmed by the king fire spirit beast that went crazy? Back then, Uncle Master Zhang and the others were only at the edge of the king-level fire spirit beast territory. Logically speaking, they wouldn't have disturbed the king-level fire spirit beast, so why were they attacked by the king-level fire spirit beast Yuan Qi, and the others were shocked and in disbelief? One of them mumbled, but I heard that Wan Qingba was injured badly when he tried to save Uncle Master Zhang. Since he wanted to harm Uncle Master Zhang, why did he save him? Yun Chujiu sighed. You guys are really brainless. If Martial Uncle Zhang was dead, how could he let Martial Uncle Zhang take the blame? How did he display his heroic deed of sacrificing himself for others? Yuan Qi and the others were instantly dumbfounded. Could it be that the truth was like this? They and their family had always hated the wrong person? Yun Chujiu looked at the complicated expressions of Yuan Qi and the others, but she had her own plans in her heart. Elder Wan's power was intertwined, and she did not have the strength to fight him. However, although the family behind Yuan Qi and the others was not as powerful as Elder Wan's, they were still a source of help. They might be useful in the future. After a long time, Zhao Hui asked thoughtfully, Junior Sister Yun, what should we say when we return to the sect? Yun Chujiu curled the corners of her lips. Of course it's the truth. Even if we can't do anything to Wan Qingba, we have to make everyone suspicious of him so that he won't attack us again without any scruples. You have to be mentally prepared. Since you didn't get killed by him this time, you have obviously become a thorn in his side. You have to be more careful in the future. Zhao Hui saw the fear and anger on Yuan Qi and the others' faces and laughed in his heart. This junior sister Yun was really despicable. Wan Qingba probably wanted to harm Zhang Li and her the most. However, after hearing what she said, Yuan Qi and the others naturally wanted to bring down Wan Qingba and the elder Wan behind him even more. In the evening, Yun Chujiu and the others returned to the nameless sword sect. They did not go to the bounty hall to hand in their mission. Instead, they went straight to the discipline hall to complain about their grievances. Manager Song of the discipline hall saw Yun Chujiu and subconsciously felt his head ache. Could this person have caused some trouble again? When Manager Song heard Yuan Qi and the other swords, his head immediately buzzed. This matter was no small matter. It was not something he could decide. Thus, Manager Song immediately reported the matter to Elder Fong, who was in charge of the discipline hall. Elder Fong immediately ordered people to bring Wan Qingba to the discipline hall, and the two sides confronted each other. The final result was similar to what Yun Chujiu had expected. Wan Qingba refused to admit that he had instructed Han Jie. Moreover, Han Jie was already crazy, and Yuan Qi and the others did not have any conclusive evidence, so they could only let it go. After all this, the sky had already turned completely dark. Yun Chujiu decided to go and present the treasure the next day, so she hopped back to her own courtyard. After this fellow had simply washed up, the first thing he did was to interrogate Buttface. Although spirit pets could see what was happening outside by establishing a spiritual connection with their owners, Yun Chujiu did not open the spiritual connection when a certain fruit ran, so Buttface did not know that something had happened. Yun Chujiu sneered, Buttface, your dog guts are getting bigger and bigger. How dare you lie to me? Do you want to become a dead dog? Buttface looked aggrieved. Little fairy, how could I lie to you? My loyalty to you is as clear as day and moon. You really hurt me when you say that. Yun Chujiu thought to herself, as expected of an ancient fierce beast. Its ability to lie through its teeth was almost as good as hers. There seemed to be something wrong with these words. It seemed that she had scolded herself. Yun Chujiu kicked Buttface and pointed at the small silver snake on the stone table that was resting with its eyes closed. She said, Prince Charming has told me everything, and you still dare to be stubborn? When Buttface heard this, he immediately felt as if the sky had collapsed.
What?
Your Excellency had actually confessed. Wasn't this cheating him? Your Majesty, you will lose the baby like this. When Buttface thought of Hei's ingenious methods, he immediately shivered and looked at the small silver snake for help. Unfortunately, a certain one seemed to be asleep and didn't even open its eyes. Buttface immediately felt that the whole dog was in a bad mood. His Majesty, this heartless person, actually abandoned him after crossing the river. Buttface thought that since the incident had already been exposed, he should honestly tell the truth. Perhaps the little fairy would not punish him too much because of his good confession attitude. Therefore, Buttface cried bitterly and said, "Little fairy, I was wrong. I shouldn't have lied to you. I shouldn't have seen the little pervert. No, your Majesty secretly climbed onto your bed and turned a blind eye to it. I shouldn't have lied for your Majesty that he kissed you. And I shouldn't have lied for your Majesty that he watched you take a bath." Before Buttface could finish his words, he felt the silver snake's cold gaze. He asked foolishly, "Your Excellency, why are you staring at me? Did you not tell the fairy about this?" The silver snake wanted to turn it into a dead dog immediately. This damned Buttface. It's over. The last bit of face of this venerable self was gone. Pan DN0V1 instantly, the entire snake was in a bad mood. However, in order to atone for his sins, Buttface. It said from the side, "That's right, your Majesty. Aren't you going to undo the seal? Then just look at it openly. However, don't get any more nosebleeds. With that small body of yours, if you get any more nosebleeds, I'm afraid you won't be able to hold on." Scram! A certain snake nearly fainted from anger. Dog 2 then realized that it seemed to have flattered a horse's hooves. He quickly covered his mouth with his paw and hid in the corner without making a sound. Yun Chujio saw the angry look of a certain venerable, pouted, threw it on the stone table, and walked into the house. The venerable didn't know whether to go in or not, but it looked at Buttface, who was pretending to be dead in the corner. Buttface was also very sad. He was also a victim, okay? Now that he was not a dog, who was he going to complain to? However, the more he was tortured, the more he felt that only villains like a certain dog and Hei Shinjo were worthy for him to follow. It was painful, but happy. After a while, Buttface said weakly, "Your Majesty, don't just stand there. The little fairy will definitely be waiting for you." A certain venerable, if it weren't for the fact that he was afraid of wasting his spiritual energy, he really wanted to turn Buttface into a dead dog. However, after hesitating for a moment, a certain venerable decided to enter the room. He didn't want to see any fragrance. He just wanted to release the seal as soon as possible. Well, that was it. Seeing a certain venerable enter the room, Buttface couldn't help but twitch his lips.
Pooey.
Pretentious. On the other side, after a certain someone entered the bedroom and saw that Hei Shinjo was reading a script, he hesitated for a moment before he shamelessly climbed onto the bed. However, when he saw the words on the cover of the script, he immediately felt that the whole snake was in trouble. On the cover, it was written, "My snake husband and I have to talk about our past in bed." He really wanted to shout, "I'm not a snake. Not a snake. Not a snake." However, a certain someone was feeling guilty now, so he just snorted coldly. "Why aren't you resting early? Why are you looking at this rubbish?" Yun Chujio looked at a certain someone with interest. "Prince Charming, what does it say about 2 snakes? Let me have a look." A certain someone. The certain someone couldn't care less about wasting his spiritual power. The words book in Yun Chujio's hand instantly turned into dust. The certain someone gnashed his teeth and said, "Sleep." Hei Shinjo blinked her eyes, but she was not angry. Instead, she said with a smile, "Sleep is fine too.
Sing me a lullaby."
A certain someone curled himself into a ball and did not say anything. What a joke. In the past, he would only sing a lullaby if his brain was damaged. Now, he would never sing it even if he was beaten to death. Yun Chujio's face suddenly revealed a sinister smile. "Prince Charming, if you don't sing for me, I'll check your body. I'm really curious." A certain person was so angry that he kept twitching. In the end, he still had water in his brain and started singing a lullaby. Yun Chujio didn't sleep the night before, so she fell asleep very quickly. A certain lord had a helpless look on his face. He felt that his husband wouldn't be able to rise up in the future. Why couldn't he do anything to this little scoundrel? After Yun Chujio washed up, she went into the courtyard and saw the silver snake resting with its eyes closed on the stone table. Even when Yun Chujio walked to the stone table, the silver snake did not open its eyes. Yun Chujio knew that a certain lord was making a scene because of a lullaby, so she did not care. "Little fellow, you have already turned into a snake. How can you escape from me?" Dog 2 hesitated for a moment, but it still ran over from the corner of the wall and said obsequiously, "Little fairy, you're not angry with me anymore, right? I will definitely turn over a new leaf in the future. I promise to tell you everything I know, and I will never lie to you again. If I lie to you again, I will be a single dog for the rest of my life." Yun Chujio saw that Dog 2 had even made such a poisonous vow, so she let it go. She also knew that Dog 2 was forced by a certain venerable. However, she didn't know that Dog 2 was actually thinking like this. Anyway, the baby isn't a dog. What does being single have to do with the baby? The baby is really getting smarter and smarter. Sure enough, following a bad person like the little fairy has its benefits. Yun Chujio had just finished her breakfast when her identity jade tablet started to tremble. She used her divine sense to see that it was from Zhao Hui, asking her to hand in a mission at the bounty hall. Although they had met with an accident, they still needed to submit a mission to the bounty hall. However, the bounty hall would handle special matters and would not punish them. Yun Chujio was about to use the King Fire Essence Beast's Earth Fire to exchange for benefits, so she naturally agreed. She immediately put the small silver snake into her sleeve pocket and happily arrived at the entrance of the bounty hall. Zhao Hui and the others were already waiting for her there, and Zhongli was also there. Yun Chujio nodded at the crowd and followed them into the bounty hall. The incident yesterday had caused such a big commotion, so the people of the bounty hall had naturally heard about it. Therefore, they didn't ask much and put away the earth fire that Zhao Hui and the others had collected. After registering, Manager Zheng of the bounty hall looked at Yun Chujio. "I heard that you also collected some King Fire Essence Beast's Earth Fire? Hand it over to me as well. The sect will naturally reward you." Yun Chujio blinked. "What rewards?" Manager Zheng, he didn't expect Yun Chujio to ask so casually. How would he know what the reward would be? This wasn't something he could decide. Yun Chujio curled her lips. "Since you can't make the decision, then help me find someone who can. I risked my life to get this earth fire. I can't just give it to you like this." Under everyone's watchful eyes, Manager Zheng felt a little embarrassed. He said with a gloomy face, "Yun Chujio, don't go too far. The earth fire you collected is a mission item. You have the obligation to hand it over to the sect." Yun Chujio still had a casual look on her face. She said indifferently, "Manager Zheng, you may have made a mistake. The sect's mission is to collect the earth fire of ordinary fire spirit beasts, while I collected the earth fire of King Fire Spirit Beasts. Moreover, when a disciple goes on a mission, other than the mission items, don't all the other items that are obtained belong to the individual? Why has it changed when it comes to me?" Manager Zheng was speechless by Yun Chujio's words. It was true. Other than the mission items, the items obtained by the disciples during the mission were all owned by them. He originally wanted to mess with Yun Chujio and send her away with a random reward. He didn't expect this brat to be so difficult to deal with. He said gloomily, "Yun Chujio, don't be too arrogant. Although you got some king-level fire essence beast's earth fire, it's not enough for you to do anything. Do you really think that you can get some amazing rewards with those earth fire essence beasts? Stop daydreaming. Even if you want to hand it over now, I don't want it anymore.
Get out."
Seeing this, Zhao Hui and the others were afraid that Yun Chujio would be at a disadvantage, so they signaled her to change her words. Otherwise, if they offended this steward Zheng, they would probably make things difficult for her in the future. Moreover, if the bounty hall didn't accept the earth fire of the king-level fire spirit beast, wouldn't she be wasting her efforts? Yun Chujio acted as if she didn't see it and said to Steward Jung lightly, "Are you really not accepting it?" Manager Jung thought that Yun Chujio was afraid and said arrogantly, "No. Not only will you not accept the earth fire that you brought this time, our bounty hall will not accept any of your items in the future." When Yun Chujio heard what he said, a bright smile appeared on her face. "Very good. Remember what you said. I will make you kneel and beg me to hand over the earth fire to your bounty hall." Manager Zheng felt that Yun Chujio was most likely mentally ill. Why would he kneel and beg her? Although the earth fire of a king-level fire spirit beast was rare, it required a large amount of earth fire to refine pills or weapons. What could she do with just a small amount of earth fire? Even if she caused a ruckus to the sect leader, it would not cause any waves. Yun Chujio did not continue to tangle with him. She turned around and left the bounty hall. She had long disliked Manager Zheng. She heard from Zhao Hui that Manager Zheng had always had a good relationship with Wan Qingba. Therefore, the previous and this mission must have been done by Manager Zheng. Could such a piece of trash still be kept for the new year? Zhao Hui and the others also followed. Zhao Hui took 2 steps forward and caught up with Yun Chujio. "Junior sister Yun, why do you have to fight with him? I'm afraid he will make things difficult for you in the future. Moreover, you don't collect much earth fire.
Just leave it to him."
Yun Chujio's lips curled into a smile. "In the future? There's no future. Today, I'll make him get the hell out of the bounty hall." Zhao Hui was dumbfounded. Could this junior sister Yun be as crazy as Hanjia? What did she mean by making him get the hell out of the bounty hall today? How could she, an outer sect disciple, make Manager Zheng get the hell out of the bounty hall? Just as Zhao Hui was puzzled, Yun Chujio said to him, "I'm going to see the sect leader. Are you going to watch the show?" Zhao Hui, Yun Chujio ignored him and said to Zhongli behind her, "Marshal Uncle Zhang, come with me. Help me testify, and also show your face." Zhongli hesitated for a moment. He felt that he was too ashamed to see Master Ouyang. He had really caused a lot of trouble for his master. "Also, if you don't even have the courage to follow me to the meeting hall, then don't hang out with me anymore." Obviously, sometimes goading was better than any other method. Whether it was Zhongli, Zhao Hui, or the others, their faces instantly turned red, and their necks were thick. They followed behind Yun Chujio with a face that looked like they were ready to die. Yun Chujio glanced at them, and finally her eyes fell on Zhongli. "Marshal Uncle Zhang, if you don't want to backfire, you'd better clean up your wretched appearance. At least shave your beard, right?" Zhongli didn't expect Yun Chujio to make such a request, but he still walked to a quiet place and tidied up before walking over. Yun Chujio was instantly stunned. Io, who would have thought that this Zhongli was actually a beautiful uncle? The degree of his beauty was on par with the previous imperial preceptor of the East Phoenix Kingdom, Yuan Ji. Yun Chujio immediately whistled like a hooligan. "Marshal Uncle Zhang, I didn't expect you to be so beautiful." "Don't worry, even if it's because you're so beautiful, it'll help you take care of that Wan Qingba." Zhang Li's face was flushed red by He Xinjiu, and he scolded hesitantly. "Marshal nephew Yun, don't talk nonsense. We'd better leave quickly." Yun Chujio said with a smile. No rush, no rush. I usually don't have the heart to criticize a beauty." A certain person in the sleeve pocket was so angry that he was fuming. This little hooligan was getting more and more outrageous. He actually dared to flirt with other men in front of him. Wasn't he a beauty? That wasn't what he meant. Did he mean that he wouldn't flirt with him? That wasn't right either. In short, this little scoundrel was too much of a troublemaker. Yun Chujio felt the cold air in the sleeve pocket and couldn't help but curl the corners of her lips. This fellow was obviously doing it on purpose. Otherwise, even a monster like Xue Wuji wouldn't be used to it. Why would he be such a scoundrel just because of Zhang Li's good looks? Along the way, Yun Chujio, Zhao Hui, and the others chatted and laughed. Occasionally, they would tease Zhang Li a little. A certain Jiao in her sleeve pocket had almost knocked over a jar of jealousy. She wished that she could shut the giggling a certain Jiao's mouth. At this moment, a fair and tender little hand reached into her sleeve pocket and poked the silver snake's head. Then, she touched the silver snake a few times. Instantly, the whole snake felt comfortable. The small silver snake squinted its eyes comfortably. The little rascal was still thinking about the main body. How could those idiots be compared to the main body? Yun Chujio and the others chatted and laughed. Soon, they arrived at the meeting hall. Pete and 0v1 Calm Zhao Hui and the others, who had already relaxed, suddenly became nervous again. They finally realized that this was the high and mighty meeting hall. Why did they follow Yun Chujio here in a daze? Just as Zhao Hui and the others were feeling regretful, they heard Yun Chujio say to the disciple at the door, "Senior brother, please go in and report that I have a peerless treasure to offer to the sect." Zhao Hui and the others stumbled and almost fell to the ground. Peerless treasure? Wasn't it just some king-level fire essence beast's earth fire? Moreover, she had only collected it for a few hours, and there wasn't much in total. Wasn't she lying through her teeth? Was it too late for them to run away now? Before Zhao Hui and the others could decide whether they should go back on their words, the disciple received a reply and let them in. Zhao Hui and the others could only brace themselves and follow Yun Chujio into the meeting hall. Outer sect disciples like them had almost no chance to come to the meeting hall. Therefore, although they were very nervous, they couldn't suppress their curiosity and secretly looked around. Only Zhang Li's expression was very complicated. Back then, he did not even need to be informed when he entered the meeting hall. But now, things were different from before, and he had fallen to such a state. 3900 Chapter 3900 When everyone entered the meeting hall, they saw that not only was Master Ouyang present, but the higher-ups of the other sects were also present. Zhao Hui and the others became even more nervous. Why were these elders also present? They hoped that junior sister Yun would be able to make up for what she had just said. Otherwise, they would really suffer. When Master Ouyang saw Zhongli, he was truly in a trance for a moment. The last time he saw Zhongli, he still had a dispirited look on his face, which really disappointed him. He didn't expect that today he looked a bit like the past. Had he figured it out? Since Master Ouyang could be the sect leader of a sect, he naturally had a clear mind. He also had doubts about what had happened in the past, but he didn't find any evidence. Moreover, Zhongli was depressed, so he could only give up in the end. Master Ouyang came back to his senses. He looked at Yun Chujio and said in a low voice, "You have a peerless treasure to offer to the sect? What kind of treasure is it?" "Master Ouyang, it's the earth fire of a king-level fire spirit beast. I risked my life to get it," Yun Chujio said with a smug look. Elder One said in a bad mood, "You're really not afraid of the wind blowing your tongue out. It's just a little bit of earth fire. What kind of peerless treasure is it?" Deliberately exaggerating and playing to the gallery, it really deserves to be punished. Zhao Hui and the others were so scared that they trembled. It's over, it's over. They just said that they were going to be unlucky. It was really bad. Yun Chujio glanced at Elder Wan. "Elder Wan, do you have clairvoyant eyes or foresight? How do you know that I only have a little bit of earth fire?" Elder One snorted coldly. "The King Fire spiritual beast's territorial awareness is very strong. You are already burning incense for being able to obtain even a little bit of it." Sect Master, this Yun Chujio has always been causing trouble. This time, it might be because she went to collect the King Fire spiritual beast's earth fire that she caused such a big trouble, but it was blamed on Qingbo. Moreover, these people are also accomplices. Sect Master, please investigate. Zhao Hui and the others were so scared that they knelt on the ground on the spot and kept on crying out their grievances. Yun Chujio sneered in her heart. This old bastard is really hard to deal with. He actually wants to bite back? Fuck, if I ask you to bite back, I'll bite off your big teeth. Master Ouyang frowned. He naturally wouldn't believe Elder Wan's words, but He also felt that Yun Chujio was exaggerating. Just as he was about to say something, he heard Yun Chujio sigh. Sigh. Master Ouyang, I have already made an agreement with those king-level fire spirit beasts. Every month, I can go and collect some king-level fire spirit beasts earth fire. Since Elder One said that I was talking nonsense, then forget it. Just pretend that I didn't say anything.
We will go down now.
Once Yun Chujio's words left her mouth, everyone was stunned. Go and collect some every month? Even if the amount collected each time wasn't much, it was still quite considerable. At least maintaining a sword forging hall shouldn't be a problem. This was simply a great thing. Elder Duanmu and Elder Dongfang of the sword forging hall of the upper house revealed looks of anticipation. If they had the earth fire of a king fire spirit beast, they would definitely be able to forge a better quality sword. However, was what this little girl said true? Could she be talking nonsense? The king fire spirit beast was unruly and unruly. It even risked its life to fight for it. Otherwise, they wouldn't have never had any designs on their earth fire. Elder One was stunned for a moment before he sneered. This is simply a big lie. This is simply impossible. Yun Chujio shrugged her shoulders. Believe it or not, I originally came with a heart full of enthusiasm to contribute to the sect. First, I was splashed with cold water by Manager Zheng of the Bounty Hall, and now am splashed with dog blood by Elder Wan. I'm really very disappointed. Sect Master, just treat me as if I'm talking nonsense. Punish me however you want. My heart is cold. After saying that, Yun Chuju stood there with a disheartened expression. She looked very bleak. The eyes of Elder Dongfang from the sword forging hall of the upper house flashed. He had to help this little girl put in some good words. If this matter was true, then wouldn't the earth fire belong to him? Thus, Elder Dongfang said to Master Ouyang, Master, although Yun Chujia's personality is a little lively, she shouldn't lie about such a big matter. Why don't we listen to what the other disciples say? Master Ouyang nodded and looked at Zhao Hui and the others. Tell us what you know. Zhao Hui and the others naturally didn't dare to hide it. They told them how Yun Chujio had made them pour cold water on her, how she had gotten close to those king-level fire spirit beasts, and how she had eagerly asked for earth fire from the king-level fire spirit beasts. Everyone frowned when they heard this. What they said didn't have any reference value. This could only mean that those king-level fire spirit beasts had agreed to let Yun Chujio collect earth fire once. At this moment, Zhongli said with a hoarse voice, I can prove that what Martial Nephew Yun said is true. I saw those king fire spirit beasts eating roasted meat with Martial Nephew Yun with my own eyes, and they were very friendly towards Martial Nephew Yun. The moment Zhongli said that, the meeting hall instantly exploded. What a joke. Didn't fire spirit beasts only eat ores? How could they possibly eat barbecued meat? Just as Yun Chujio was about to continue teasing these old things, the small silver snake in her sleeve pocket began to wriggle uneasily. Yun Chujio could not help but frown. She was afraid that something would happen to Di Baiming, so she no longer kept him in suspense. She directly took out a fiery red shuttlecock from her storage ring. This is made from the hair given to me by the King Fire Spirit Beast. This can at least prove that I have a good relationship with them, right? In the future, I can regularly collect their earth fire and offer it to the sect. However, I have two requests. First, let the Discipline Hall investigate Manager Zheng of the Bounty Hall. I suspect that he is neglecting his duty and accepting bribes. PANDNOV, one after Yun Chujio finished speaking, she did not wait for Master Ouyang to speak. She held her stomach and ran out of the meeting hall. Everyone was dumbfounded. However, looking at the fiery red shuttlecock on the ground, they believed Yun Chujio's words. The King of Fire Spirit Beasts loved their fur very much. Even if it fell on the ground, they would carefully collect it. These fur were definitely given to Yun Chujio by them of their own accord. If this was true, the Nameless Sword sect would have an advantage that other sects did not have. If they wanted to refine some special medicinal pills, they would have to come over and beg the Nameless Sword sect to give them some earth fire. Just thinking about it made them feel very comfortable. Therefore, the two requests that Yun Chujio made were not a big deal. If she proposed to directly become an inner sect disciple, some old fogies might object. However, it was only a qualification for the inner sect selection. It was really not a big deal. On the other side, Yun Chujio held her stomach and finally found a remote place. She took out the small silver snake and asked anxiously, "Prince Charming, what happened to you?" "I feel that my body is bloated, just like the last time when I turned into a human. I don't know if I'm going to turn into a human again. Quickly take me back to the courtyard," a certain honorable man said helplessly. He simply could not imagine that if he really turned into a human in the meeting hall just now, wouldn't he be running around in front of everyone? After hearing that, Yun Chujio was first stunned, then she rubbed her hands. "Really? Doesn't that mean that I'll be able to feast my eyes again? Haha, let's go, we're going back now. Haha, today is really a good day." A certain honored warrior, he wanted to die, really, the kind that would not live even if he died. Yun Chujio happily brought the silver snake back to her courtyard. This fellow had long forgotten about the people in the meeting hall. What could be more important than admiring the body of a gigolo? After returning to the courtyard, the silver snake directly crawled into the quilt. This way, even if it really turned into a human, at least it wouldn't run away. Hei Shinjo blinked her eyes and thought to herself, this pretty boy is quite smart. In this way, won't she be unable to see anything? If she had known this would happen, she would have found an excuse not to enter the courtyard.
It was really a misstep.
However, this fellow still moved a chair to sit by the bedside and waited anxiously for the small silver snake to turn into a human. Although she couldn't feast her eyes on it, it was still a good opportunity to take advantage of it. However, after a while, the little silver snake did not turn into a human. Yun Chujio's identity, jade tablet, started to tremble. Only then did this fellow remember that there was still a group of people waiting for her in the meeting hall. Now, the problem came. She was definitely worried about leaving the little silver snake alone in the dormitory. However, if she brought the little silver snake along, what if she ran away halfway? It was fine if the 6 king fire spiritual beasts saw her last time, but if others saw her, she would die of heartache. This fellow blinked his eyes and then replied weakly, "Oh, Master Ouyang, my stomach is hurting badly. I can't go over there for a while."
"Don't worry.
As long as you agree to my request, I will definitely go to collect the earth fire on time. If I can't do it, you can deal with me as you wish." The corner of Master Ouyang's eyes twitched when he received Hei Xingjia's message. However, he discussed it with everyone. After all, Yun Chujio's 2 requests were not excessive. Moreover, he was not afraid that she would not admit to it. Therefore, Master Ouyang immediately ordered people to fulfill Yun Chujio's 2 requests. When the people from the discipline hall arrived at the bounty hall, Manager Zheng's face immediately turned ashen. He didn't expect that Yun Chujio, a mere outer court disciple, could really contend with him. He had profited a lot these years, and he was probably really done for. On the other side, Hei Xinjiu waited until the sky turned dark, but she didn't see the little silver snake turn into a human. He angrily pulled the little silver snake out of his blanket. "Prince Charming, are you kidding me?" "Change." Hei Xinjiu was so angry. She made the sky happy for a long time and even wasted the chance to bargain with Old Man Ouyang and the others. It was all because of this unreliable gigolo. No matter how angry Hei Xinjiu was, she did not delay her dinner. She began to eat while muttering. A certain lord was in a bad mood, so he just sat there with his eyes closed. He had no intention of eating at all. Yun Chujio became even angrier when she saw him. "Hey, do you still want to go on a hunger strike to protest? I'm the one who should be angry, okay? Do you want to eat? If you don't, I'll feed the ribs to Buttface." The little silver snake still did not move, obviously not wanting to speak. Yun Chujio rolled her eyes and said with a sinister smile, "Hurry up and eat. If you're not obedient, it'll help you check your body." A certain being's body stiffened, and his pair of vertical pupils stared coldly at Hei Xinjiu. He Xinjiu could even feel that certain being was about to explode in anger. Unfortunately, this guy knew that certain being was just a paper tiger in front of her, so he was not afraid at all. Yun Chujiu shamelessly poked the little silver snake's head. If you continue to stare at me, I will really attack you. Previously, in the script, before Yun Chujiu could finish her words, the little silver snake had already started to gnaw on the ribs. A certain someone secretly gritted his teeth. Little rascal, when I fully recover, HMPH. Seeing that a certain being had submitted, Yun Chujiu's lips revealed a hint of complacency. Today was the day to be drunk, and today was the day to be drunk. If he could bully her for a day, then so be it. As for the future, who cares? At night, when a certain being was threatened by He Xinjiu, he had no choice but to sing a lullaby in his head. A certain being felt that he really couldn't live this life anymore. The next morning, Yun Chujiu opened her eyes in a refreshed manner. She thought that the small silver snake would still hide out like yesterday, but she didn't expect that the small silver snake would obediently lie on the side of the bed. The corner of Yun Chujiu's mouth curled up. Had she broken a broken pot? She did not know that a certain someone had thought things through. Right now, he had no way of dealing with the little rascal. He might as well grit his teeth and endure it. After he recovered, he would slowly settle the score with her. After breakfast, Yun Chujiu received a notice from the Miscellaneous Affairs Hall, asking her to go to the Miscellaneous Affairs Hall to register for the inner disciple selection. After receiving the notice, Yun Chujiu did not rush to the Miscellaneous Affairs Hall directly. Instead, she strolled towards Zhang Li's courtyard. Before she entered the courtyard, she heard Zhuang Hong's disdainful voice coming from inside. Zhang Li, I've really underestimated the extent of your shamelessness. Do you know that every time Master sees you, he will be very sad? You'd better not appear in front of Master in the future, or else you'll be in trouble. Junior brother Zhuang, of course I've always treated you well. When you first entered the sect, I was the one who taught you swordsmanship step by step. Why are you targeting me now? Targeting you? You don't have the right to make me target you. I just don't want to see Master sad. You'd better take care of yourself. A person like you should consciously get out of the nameless sword sect. Zhang Li was angry and disappointed. He didn't know what to say for a moment. Yo, Martial Uncle Zhang, it's so early in the morning. Why is there a dog barking in your yard? Yun Chujiu said as she walked into the yard. Zhuang Hong wasn't stupid. Of course, he could hear that Yun Chujiu was scolding him. He glared at Yun Chujiu fiercely. Yun Chujiu, don't think that you're great just because you made some earth fire. A piece of trash like you won't be able to enter the inner sect. TSK, you probably don't know yet, right? Martial Uncle Zhang is also going to participate in the inner sect selection. Are you afraid? Zhuang Hong's expression immediately changed. Zhang Li, you can't be so ignorant, right? Are you trying to anger Master to death? Zhang Li was just about to speak when Yun Chujiu spoke first. The sect master wants to see Martial Uncle Zhang pull himself together the most, so why would he be angry? I'm afraid the one who's angry is you, right? TSK, someone must be so afraid that he can't sleep. After all, Martial Uncle Zhang's spiritual power is much stronger than someone else's. Someone's wishful thinking is about to fail. Zhuang Hong's expression became even more unsightly. He gritted his teeth and said, Zhang Li, even if you can re-enter the inner sect, Master will definitely not take you in again. Just give up on this idea. After Zhuang Hong finished speaking, he left angrily. Zhang Li laughed bitterly, and then looked at Yun Chujiu. Martial nephew Yun, why did you offend him just to stand up for me? Besides, I won't participate in the inner sect disciple selection. If you don't participate in the inner sect disciple selection, how can you fight with Wan Qingba? How can you fight with Elder Wan? Martial Uncle Zhang, don't let me look down on you. Yun Chujiu said this and ignored Zhang Li. She directly left the courtyard. This guy was certain that Zhongli would participate in the inner disciple selection in the end. She was helping him as well as herself. It would be even more difficult for her to gain a foothold in the inner sect. She had to get a few helpers for herself. Mu Jiang and Zhao Hui would definitely participate in the inner disciple selection. Moreover, their spiritual power was considered to be among the best among the outer disciples. There was a high chance that they would pass the selection successfully. Although Yuan Qi and the other spiritual power could not compare to Zhao Hui and the others, they had the support of their families. With more spiritual weapons, they might be able to pass the selection. In this way, at least she would not be fighting alone. As the selection was to begin in 5 days, there were many disciples who signed up at the Miscellaneous Affairs office. Yun Chuzhou waited for quite a while before it was her turn. According to the regulations of the Nameless Sword sect, only outer disciples who had entered the sect for more than 5 years were qualified to participate in the selection of inner disciples. Therefore, Yun Chujia's special case naturally attracted the attention of many people. Of course, most of these gazes were filled with disdain. They felt that Yun Chuzhou was overestimating herself. One had to know that the inner sect selection was a real sword and spear competition. Although Yun Chuzhou had randomly encountered a dead rat and learned 3 mysterious sword moves, now that everyone had learned those 3 moves. Moreover, Yun Chujia's spiritual power was much lower than the others. She might not even pass the first round of the selection. Yun Chuzhou did not care about these stares at all. After she finished signing up, she went straight to the number 9 sword forging hall. Hall Master Zhuge saw her and said with a cold face, "You want to participate in the selection of inner disciples? What nonsense! Don't lose your life by accident." Yun Chuzhou understood Hall Master Zhuge's temper and knew that he was showing concern for her in a disguised way. She smiled and said, "I cherish my life very much. Don't worry, nothing will happen to me." Hall Master Zhuge's face darkened when he saw Yun Chujia's heartless look. He was about to continue saying something when Yun Chuzhou said with a smile, "Hall Master, here, this is for you." Hall Master Zhuge looked at the item that Yun Chuzhou handed over and was immediately shocked. This is the earth fire of a king-level fire spirit beast. Hall Master Zhuge did not expect that Yun Chuzhou would leave him a copy of the King Fire Essence Beast's earth fire. Speaking of which, he had always been indifferent to this little girl. Moreover, every time she was in trouble, he had the heart but was powerless to help her. He really felt guilty. Hall Master Zhuge was at a loss for words. Just when he did not know what to say, Yun Chuzhou said with a smile, "Hall Master, are you going to be so touched that you're going to cry?" Hall Master Zhuge glared at her. "Nonsense. If you have the time to talk nonsense, you might as well think about how to save your life. Wan Qingba will definitely have to do something. Don't be careless." Yun Chuzhou narrowed her eyes. "When the time comes, I will take it as it comes. This time I must enter the inner sect. I will kill anyone who stands in my way." When Hall Master Zhuge and the north, south, east, and west heard Yun Chujia's chilling words, the worry in their hearts was immediately reduced by more than half. Although this little girl had a temperamental personality, she seemed to be able to turn the situation around every time. This time, they believed that she could do it as well. Yun Chuzhou chatted with them for a while more before she hopped away. The disciples of the Sword Forging Hall were different from ordinary disciples. They did not participate in the selection of inner disciples. Their honor and disgrace were all tied to their respective hall masters. If the hall masters could be promoted from the lower house to the middle house, their status would naturally change from outer disciples to inner disciples. This was also the reason why many people were willing to become sword forging disciples. Yun Chuzhou hopped around the bounty hall again. As she wished, she saw that Steward Zheng was no longer there. When Steward Qian, who was on duty, saw this guy, his attitude was extremely good. What a joke. He did not want to repeat Manager Zheng's mistake. Therefore, He Xinzhou exchanged the remaining earth fire for 10,000 sect contribution points. After Master Ouyang found out, the corner of his mouth twitched. He originally thought that the two requests of the little girl were a little simple, but it turned out that they were just additional conditions. Yun Chujio found Zhao Hui again and planned to understand the selection process of the inner sect and some small news. Zhao Hui was quick-witted. After seeing Yun Chujio's outstanding qualities, he made up his mind to follow her. Therefore, he told Yun Chujio everything he knew. Yun Chujio simply had dinner in Zhao Hui's courtyard. After chatting for a while, she returned to her dormitory. Pan DN0VE1, some in a trance, she felt as if she had forgotten something. However, after thinking about it for a while, she couldn't recall anything, so she decided not to think about it and continued to cultivate. It was only when this fellow was yawning and preparing to sleep that she remembered what she had forgotten. Cough, cough. She had forgotten to feed the little silver snake dinner. At this moment, a certain honored guest in his sleeve pocket nearly died from anger. This little rascal was so engrossed in eating and drinking with that Zhao Hui that he actually didn't care about whether he was dead or alive. Was he going to starve his husband to death? A certain someone had completely forgotten that he wouldn't die even if he starved for 10 days to half a month. How could he die after just one meal? Yun Chujio looked guilty as she took out the small silver snake from her sleeve pocket. After feeling a certain someone's dense resentment and cold air, she laughed dryly. My Prince Charming, I'm sorry. I was so engrossed in understanding the selection of the inner sect that I forgot about you. Well, I remember that you said that eating is a waste of time. I'll put a bottle of fasting pills in my sleeve from now on. If you're hungry, you can eat fasting pills. A certain someone. This was torture. Naked torture. Could it be that in her heart, he couldn't be compared to that idiot Buttface? Buttface still had bones to gnaw on. Why did he have to bitterly swallow fasting pills? Therefore, a certain someone closed his eyes and ignored Yun Chujio. Yun Chujio poked the silver snake's head with her hand, but the certain someone acted as if he didn't feel anything and still didn't open his eyes. Yun Chujio was speechless. Why did she feel that ever since the pretty boy turned into the silver snake, his arrogance had disappeared, leaving only arrogance? In the end, Yun Chujio personally fed the small silver snake half a bowl of porridge and a few pieces of ribs. A certain someone finally felt a little better. How confident are you in the selection of the inner sect? A certain someone asked stiffly, but there was an unconcealable concern in his tone. Yun Chujio curled the corners of her lips. 10 points. A certain someone pretend he didn't ask anything. Chapter 3906. The first round of the selection. Yun Chujio and a certain venerable were talking incoherently. The kitten in the spirit beast pouch was getting restless. When this wretched girl participated in the inner sect selection, she might be killed by someone. Then, wouldn't she regain her freedom? Moreover, the idiots in the spirit beast pouch were each dumber than the last. With a little trick, it could eat a few of them. At that time, it would be able to fly freely in the sky and leap freely in the sea. Therefore, the kitten could not wait for the inner disciple selection to begin immediately. However, Hei Xinjiu was faced with a difficult question. Should she bring a certain venerated beast along with her? If a certain venerated beast transformed into a human form on the competition stage, the scene would be too beautiful for Hei Xinjiu to imagine. However, if she did not bring it along with her, she was afraid that a certain venerated beast would be in danger. Although the small silver snake still had some spiritual power left, if she encountered a powerful opponent, she would only end up dead. In the end, Yun Chujio decided to bring a certain someone with her. At most, she would react to his reaction and adapt to the situation. This guy had prepared a dehua cloth in his storage ring. Once a certain someone transformed, she would immediately cover him so that he would not be exposed. Hei Xinjiu said mysteriously to a certain someone, Prince Charming, if there really is an accident, just cover your face. At that time, I will say that the one who ran away was Wu Ji's head. A certain god. Should he sympathize with that idiot Shui Wuji, or should he feel miserable for his own situation? Finally, in Cat Cub's anticipation, the selection of the nameless sword sect's inner court disciples began. Yun Chuju strolled to the square of the lower house. At this time, there were already several competition stages set up in the square, and under each competition stage, there were many disciples gathered. The rules of the first round of the inner sect selection were very simple and crude. That was, only after defeating 5 people in a row could one advance. Moreover, each person only had one chance, whether it was the challenger or the challenged. Once they failed, they would lose the qualification to participate in the selection. The first batch of challengers who entered the arena all thought that their spiritual power was not bad, but no one went up to challenge them. The reason was very simple. Unless they had absolute confidence in winning, they might lose the opportunity to participate in the selection. Naturally, they had to be careful. Therefore, when Yun Chujo arrived, she saw many disciples standing alone on the competition stage. Although there were many disciples gathered under each competition stage, no one went up to challenge them. When Yun Chujo was looking around curiously, Zhao Hui came over. He saw that Yun Chujo was a little curious, so he explained, "Junior sister Yun, you're here? Every year during the selection, it will be like this at the beginning. Now, it's a probing stage. When someone goes up to fight, I have a rough estimate in my heart, and the scene will become lively." Yun Chujo nodded. This was easy to understand. Knowing yourself and knowing your enemy, you will always win. It was estimated that the first ones to challenge the stage were either pretentious or had no hope of advancing at all. Yun Chujo glanced around and found an empty competition stage in the corner. She said to Zhao Hui, "Senior brother Zhao, you watch first. I'll go up first." The reason why this fellow was so anxious was because he was afraid that something would happen to a certain honored warrior. It was better to end the battle as soon as possible. While Zhao Hui was stunned, Yun Chujo had already squeezed through the crowd and walked towards the competition stage in the corner. Zhao Hui was so anxious that he gritted his teeth. This junior sister Yun was too arrogant. She was definitely going to be eliminated. Chapter 3907. How much money do you need? The moment Yun Chujo stepped onto the competition stage, she immediately attracted the attention of many people. Isn't that Yun Chujo? Is she crazy or stupid? Why is she on the competition stage now? I guess this idiot is participating in the selection for the first time and doesn't know how powerful it is. TSK, a third-level spirit cultivator, actually has the nerve to be the first to step onto the stage. She really overestimates herself. Level 3 psychic? Why do I remember that not long ago, she was still at level 9 of the spirit transformation realm? Who cares how many levels she has? In any case, she is much lower than us. Let's not talk about it anymore. I want to go up and challenge her. My first victory will depend on her. Perhaps everyone felt that Yun Chujo, this soft persimmon, was easier to deal with. Therefore, they all swarmed under the number 19 competition stage, where Yun Chujo was. Moreover, the crowd was arguing over who should go up and challenge. Some even started fighting directly below the stage. It was simply a mess. The discipline hall was responsible for maintaining the order of the inner sect selection competition. Coincidentally, the person on duty today was an old acquaintance of Yun Chujo, Manager Song. After receiving the report, Manager Song went to the scene and saw that his head was buzzing. How could this Yun Chujo cause trouble wherever she went? Were these people full of themselves? Why were they fighting below? With the intervention of the discipline hall, the situation was finally under control. However, there were still many disciples who wanted to compete with Yun Chujo on the stage. Just as Manager Song was about to suppress them, he heard Yun Chujo, who was on the stage, say faintly, "Since you all want to compete with me so much, then let's compete. Whoever has the most money will come up and compete with me." Manager Song's nose almost went crooked from anger. How badly do you need money? You want to make a profit from participating in the selection? In your dreams. Who would have thought that a disciple would immediately say, "I'll bid 100 upper-grade spirit stones. I must be the first one on the stage today." 100? Aren't you too stingy? "I'll bid 500. I'll bid 800. Manager Song was speechless as he looked at the sky. Were these people crazy? How could Manager Song know that those disciples were already hot-blooded because of the dispute? At this moment, the competition was no longer about who would compete with Yun Chujio first, but about competing with each other. Yun Chujio simply took a chair from her storage ring, crossed her legs, and watched the people below while munching on melon seeds until her face was red and her neck was thick. Finally, a disciple shouted the price of 10,000 high-grade spirit stones. Although the others were not convinced, they felt that it was not worth it to spend 10,000 spirit stones just to fight for their lives. Thus, they all stopped fighting. A glimmer of light flashed in the disciple's eyes, and he jumped onto the competition stage. Yun Chujio slowly put the chair into her storage ring, and then stretched out her hand. "You transfer the spirit stones to me first, or else the senior brothers below the stage won't agree." Immediately, the disciples who had failed the auction earlier began to clamor. That disciple had no choice but to transfer 10,000 high-grade spirit stones to Yun Chujio. Yun Chujio was about to speak, but her identity jade tablet started to tremble. After Yun Chujio sent her divine sense into it, Zhao Hu's worried voice came from inside. "Junior Marshal Sister Yun, the person on the stage is called Zhang Su. He's one Qingbao's man. You have to be careful." Yun Chujio acknowledged, and then raised her eyes to size up Zhang Su. She was a little puzzled at first. Was this person crazy enough to pay 10,000 high-grade spirit stones just to fight with her? So it turned out that he was up to something. At this time, the disciple sneered and said, "Yun Chujio, the swords and sabers on the stage have no eyes. If I'm not careful, I might hurt you. This 10,000 high-grade spirit stones can be considered as compensation for you." Chapter 3908. "You are too vicious." Yun Chujio laughed lightly. "Don't talk nonsense if you can do it. You are a fool who spent money to buy suffering." Yun Chujio's words caused the audience to burst into laughter. How could Zhang Su endure it? He immediately took out his sword and stabbed at Yun Chujio's heart. The force was so strong and the speed was so fast that it was obvious that he wanted to take the opportunity to kill Yun Chujio. Manager Song frowned. Although he had to use all his strength on the competition stage, he still had to avoid injuring his life. This Zhang Su was a bit too ruthless. That Yun Chujio was also overestimating herself. "You are just a little trash at the 3rd level of spiritual link. Why are you going on stage?" One had to know that the spiritual power of these outer sect disciples was at least at the 7th level of spiritual link and above. They were usually at the 8th or 9th level. Wasn't this asking for a beating? Manager Song felt that based on the difference in spiritual power between the two, Yun Chujio would be defeated in less than 10 moves. However, just as he was thinking about it, he heard a burst of exclamations from the crowd. He looked up and saw a huge spiritual beast appear on the competition stage. That was a pig, right? Zhang Su was obviously shocked as well. However, on second thought, although this spiritual beast was huge, Yun Chujio's spiritual power was so low, so this thing wouldn't be very powerful. Therefore, he raised his sword and stabbed at Dehua. Dehua did not even bother to look at him. She raised her huge hooves and stepped on Zhang Su's sword. Although Zhang Su's sword Qi had cut Dehua's hooves, Dehua was only a spiritual beast, so it would not feel any pain even if it was cut open. Instead, it was Zhang Su who was stepped on by Dehua's hooves. Zhang Su desperately waved his sword and finally crawled out from under Dehua's hoof in a sorry state. Immediately, panic rose in his heart. This stinky girl's spiritual beast was actually so powerful. Yun Chujio crossed her arms and stood at the side. The corner of her mouth held a smile as she looked at Dehua, who was torturing him. However, her right hand was sneakily teasing a certain person in her sleeve pocket. Zhang Su was so angry that he gritted his teeth. However, Dehua's huge body was like a small mountain that blocked his attack. He had no way to hurt Yun Chujio at all. Not only that, even though his sword Qi made Dehua's color weaken a little, Dehua did not disappear. He was forced to a corner of the competition stage step by step. Just as Dehua was about to kick Zhang Su away, Yun Chuzhou said faintly, "Dehua, senior brother Zhang said that swords have no eyes. It is inevitable to be injured. Aren't you being too hasty to let him go?" Dehua immediately understood what Yun Chuzhou meant. His huge body suddenly leaped forward and pressed on Zhang Su's body. Everyone heard the sound of bones breaking coming from Zhang Su's body, which was really creepy. After this, although Zhang Su was not going to lose his life, he would have to lie on the bed for at least a year and a half. Zhang Su took out a handful of pills and stuffed them into his mouth. Only then did he not pass out. He gritted his teeth and looked at Yun Chuzhou. "Yun Chuzhou, you are too vicious." Yun Chuzhou curled the corners of her lips. "Vicious? You wanted to kill me in the beginning. I was merciful enough to spare your life out of consideration for the friendship of my fellow disciples. How about I send you on your way right now?" Manager Song was afraid that Yun Chuzhou would really kill him, so he quickly asked 2 disciples of the discipline hall to carry Zhang Su down. Unexpectedly, Yun Chuzhou said with a faint smile, "Wait." Manager Song's heart skipped a beat. What did this troublemaker want to do? Did she really want to kill Zhang Su? Chapter 3909 Fame. After a battle, just as Manager Song was about to stop her, Yun Chuzhou took out a spirit stone from her storage ring and threw it to Zhang Su. "Here, keep this money for your treatment. The wool is on the sheep anyway, it's all your own money." Zhang Su spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted. Manager Song's eyes twitched. This troublemaker was really mean. The others below the competition stage thought so too, especially after seeing Dehua. They changed their previous enthusiasm and retreated without a trace, then ran away. What a joke. This little girl's hands are really dark. Wouldn't she be asking for a beating if she went up? Thus, He Xinjiu tragically discovered that no one was competing with her anymore. The other competition stages were all in full swing, but her competition stage was only left with her alone. Not to mention the contestants, there wasn't even a single audience member.
Fuck.
If she had known earlier, she would have taken it easy. Weren't these people too timid?
She didn't do anything.
Didn't she just beat that Zhang Su until all his limbs and bones were shattered? Was it really that scary? This fellow was really impatient from waiting. He waved at Manager Song. "Manager Song, it's not a good thing for me to wait like this. How about this? I'll go back to the dormitory and take a nap first. If anyone wants to compete with me, you can send me a message." Manager Song was about to refuse when he heard Yun Chuzhou say faintly, "If you don't agree, I'll become a demon. You know my ability." Manager Song almost vomited blood. In the nameless sword sect, only this troublemaker dared to threaten him so blatantly. Manager Song only had to grit his teeth and agree. Seeing that he agreed, Yun Chuzhou immediately jumped off the competition stage and secretly gave Manager Song a dragon whisker crimson afterglow grass. A few days ago, she saw Manager Song issuing this mission on the second floor of the lower house's bounty hall. Coincidentally, she had it in her storage ring, so it was just right for her to use it as a favor. The more expensive the gift, the better. It was to suit his taste. Sure enough, Manager Song's expression was shocked. If Yun Chuzhou had given him spirit stones, he would have refused her sternly. However, although the dragon beard's scarlet multicolored grass was an earth-grade high-grade one, it was rarely seen on the market, so he was a little hesitant. In such a moment of hesitation, Yun Chuzhou had already skipped away. Manager Song didn't know what he was feeling at that moment. Was this considered a slap and a red date? Yun Chuzhou became famous after a battle. Although it was a bad reputation, the effect was obvious. That afternoon, no one challenged He Xinjiu. This guy was happily teasing a certain arrogant man in the yard. "Prince Charming, you've always been like this. How soft and cute you are," He Xinjiu said with a smile, while holding her chin. A certain someone snorted coldly. It was probably because he was easy to bully. Besides, soft and cute?
Cute?
Did these words have anything to do with him? Yun Chujo sighed and continued, "If you are always like this, I can bring you by my side at any time, and we can always be together." A certain someone could hear a trace of grievance and helplessness in Yun Chujio's words. His heart turned sour and throbbed in pain. He wished that he could immediately hug Yun Chujio in his arms and not let her suffer any more harm or grievance. However, a certain someone quickly fed this thought to the dog. That was because he heard Yun Chujio continue, "Actually, the most important thing is that if you continue to be like this, I can bully you unscrupulously."
Ha ha ha.
Come, little baby, sing a lullaby for your sister. Chapter 39. Ten was like ordering his grandson around. A certain venerable stared at Hei Shinjo coldly and squeezed out a few words through gritted teeth. "Little Gio, if you don't know how to restrain yourself, wait until I recover. HMPH. Upon hearing the words of a certain venerable, Hei Xinjia's small face immediately twitched and even trembled slightly. A certain venerable said that this little rascal finally knew how to be afraid. If he had known earlier, he would have said something ruthless earlier. Just as a certain someone was thinking about it, he heard Yun Chujio say in an exaggerated tone, I'm so scared. My little heart is so scared that it won't even jump."
Ha ha ha.
A certain someone looked at Hei Shinjo, who was laughing so hard that he was so angry that the entire snake was in a bad mood. He might as well close his eyes and not see. Just as Yun Chujio was about to continue provoking a certain someone, her identity jade plate started to tremble. After she sent her spiritual sense in, she realized that it was from Manager Song. After she heard Manager Song's message, her face couldn't help but turn slightly cold. Manager Song had told her that the sex higher-ups had issued a new competition rule. For the sake of fairness, everyone was prohibited from using spiritual beasts. For the sake of fairness? This rule was completely targeted at her. In the Nameless Sword sect, she was the only one who had a spiritual beast, all right. Yun Chujio laughed lightly. Did she think that this would be enough to stop her? She had entered the meditative state of the inner sect. The next morning, before Yun Chujio could even get up, her identity jade plate started trembling. She impatiently sent her spiritual sense into it. Manager Song's urging voice came from inside. "Yun Chujio, because of the new rules, many people want to challenge you. Come over quickly." Hei Shinjo closed her eyes and said impatiently, "Let them bid first. Let me know when there's a result." On the other side, Manager Song, he knew that he should not have accepted the dragon beard's scarlet sunset grass that caused trouble yesterday. Now, she was ordering him around like a grandson. Yun Chujio went back to sleep again until Manager Song warned her that she would be disqualified if she did not show up. Then, she got up and rushed to the square of the lower house with a meat bun in her mouth. When Yun Chujio was halfway there, she met Zhao Hui, who was rushing over. Zhao Hui looked anxious. "Junior Sister Yun, some disciples are saying that they want to disqualify you from the competition. Why are you so late? Quick, come with me." Hearing that, Yun Chujio hastened her steps. This guy had a battle of wits and courage with a certain someone yesterday and didn't fall asleep until the second half of the night. That was why he stayed in bed this morning. It had to be said that a beautiful snake misled people. Zhao Hui said as he walked, "Junior Sister Yun, I saw that the few people in front of the auction are all disciples who usually listen to Wan Qingba's orders. Moreover, you are no longer allowed to use spiritual beasts. You have to be careful." Yun Chujio nodded in agreement. Seeing that she still did not seem to care, Zhao Hui became even more worried. He was now placed in the same camp as Yun Chujio. If anything happened to her, Wan Qingba would probably find trouble with him soon. So, God bless Junior Sister Yun and let her enter the inner sect smoothly. From afar, Yun Chujio saw that there were many people gathered under the number 19 competition stage. There were more than 10 times more people than the other competition stages. This guy could not help but curse in his heart. Fuck, these people were so interested in her? How could this guy know that ever since she became famous in the battle yesterday, her popularity had increased by leaps and bounds? Many people wanted to see how miserable she would be without her spiritual beast. Chapter 39:11. When the crowd saw Yun Chujio coming over, they took the initiative to make way for her. However, their eyes were full of schadenfreude. This Yun Chujio was most likely going to be unlucky. The few people who went up to the stage first today were all top experts in the outer sect. Moreover, they usually had a good relationship with Jiangsu, so they definitely would not let Yun Chujio off easily. Most importantly, they were not allowed to use the spirit beast today, so how could Yun Chujio have any advantages? Just wait to be abused. After seeing Yun Chujio, Manager Song gave her a look that said, Yun Chujio. Then, he deliberately emphasized, Yun Chujio, during the selection process, you can take the initiative to admit defeat. If one side admits defeat, the other side cannot attack again. Do you understand? Yun Chujio knew that Manager Song was reminding her that if she could not hold on, she should admit defeat so that she would not be at a disadvantage. Yun Chujio just smiled faintly and then jumped onto the competition stage. Almost as soon as she stepped onto the competition stage, a male disciple also jumped onto the competition stage. The male disciple was about to speak, but Yun Chujio said first, "You first hand over the spirit stones for the auction." The male disciple snorted coldly and handed over 8,000 upper-grade spirit stones to Yun Chujio. Yun Chujio frowned. So little? It's not even enough to fill the gaps between her teeth. How about this? I defeated one yesterday. Including you, there are still 3 spots left. The 3 people who are ranked at the back, give me the spirit stones too, and make an appointment first. Everyone was so angry that their noses almost went crooked. This thing even has an appointment? Moreover, how did you know that you could defeat Lu Xiaotao on the stage? I've seen shameless people before, but this is the first time I've seen such shameless people. The disciple opposite Yun Chujio, who was also Lu Xiaotao, was also extremely angry. Damned girl, don't talk big. Beat me first before you say anything else. Yun Chujio ignored him and continued to say to the audience, those who were ranked 2nd to 4th just now don't leave. Whoever leaves will be a grandson. Zhao Hui was on the verge of tears. This great aunt was too good at gaining hatred points. She was seeking death by playing tricks. Lu Xiaotao could not take it anymore. Yun Chujio was clearly looking down on him, as if he would definitely lose. She really overestimated herself. If it was yesterday, he really did not have much confidence. However, she could not use her spiritual beast now, so she was not his opponent at all. Lu Xiaotao thought of the things that Wan Qingba had instructed him to do. Later in the competition, even if he accidentally killed him, he would not receive too much punishment. She had brought this upon herself. Thinking of this, Lu Xiaotao summoned his treasured sword and stabbed it directly at Yun Chujio's throat. After Yun Chujio nimbly dodged it, her body flashed to Lu Xiaotao's side like a demonic charm, and she stabbed her sword at Lu Xiaotao's lower abdomen. Lu Xiaotao was shocked. Although this wretched girl's spiritual power was low, her movement technique was fast enough. He had to be careful. The two of them fought back and forth. Everyone saw that Yun Chujio was not at a disadvantage and could not help but feel a little surprised. Although this Yun Chujio's spiritual power was low, her sword technique and movement technique were not bad. However, as time passed, the difference in spiritual power would be revealed. At that time, she would most likely lose without a doubt. Everyone thought so. Zhao Hui also had a worried expression on his face. Junior sister Yun was most likely going to lose. Right at this moment, Yun Chujio released a fleeting giant-winged bird from her spirit beast pouch. Lu Xiaotao was stunned at first, then he said with a contemptuous smile, Yun Chujio, this spirit pet of yours is only at the 7th level of the spirit transformation realm. It's simply courting death. Not to mention 1. Even 2 would be useless. Yun Chujio laughed lightly. Is that so? Then let's give it a try. As Yun Chujio said, sure enough, she let out a shadow-skimming giant winged bird from the spiritual beast bag. Chapter 39:12. Are you the only one who has a spiritual pet? Lu Xiaotao clearly did not expect Yun Chujio to really have two giant winged birds. Although these giant winged birds were only at the 7th level of the spirit transformation realm, he did not have much of an advantage to begin with. If Yun Chujio had the help of these two demonic birds, it was very likely that he would be at a disadvantage. Just as Lu Xiaodao was in a daze, the two giant winged birds shot several water arrows at him. They were so stifled in the spirit beast pouch that they were about to turn into mushrooms. It was not easy for him to get a chance to take a walk today, so he naturally had to make good use of it. Lu Xiaotao quickly brandished his sword and used the sword aura to block the water arrows. Before he could let out a sigh of relief, Yun Chujio's sword had also arrived. This fellow was afraid that using the large kitchen knife would trigger killing intent, so he casually took out a treasure sword from his storage ring and made do with it. Actually, there were dozens of immortal swords in this fellow's storage ring. They were all obtained from the ancient sword tomb. However, this fellow was afraid that she would attract attention if she took them out, so she just randomly chose an ordinary treasure sword. This fellow was still cursing in her heart. Actually, if she used the sword techniques on the stone wall, she would be able to torture this Lu Xiaotao to death within minutes. However, that was something that could not be seen in the light. It seemed that if there was an opportunity, she would have to make a few more trips to the Ancestral Master's cave abode and find an excuse to announce a few more sword techniques. However, with the help of the two giant winged birds, Yun Chujio gradually gained the upper hand. Very soon, Lu Xiaotao could only parry and was unable to retaliate. He was forced to the edge of the competition stage by Yun Chujio. Lu Xiaodao thought of Zhang Su's miserable state and gritted his teeth. Since he had already lost, he might as well jump down to avoid suffering. Thus, Lu Xiaotao directly jumped off the stage and admitted defeat. Yun Chujio curled her lips and looked down the stage. Where's the second place in the auction? Come on up. Don't tell me you want to be a grandson? Immediately, a male disciple angrily jumped onto the stage. Yun Chujio first took his spirit stones and then started fighting with him. The familiar formula and the familiar smell. The male disciple fought with Yun Chujio for almost an hour before he was forced off the stage by Yun Chujio. Although Yun Chujio won 2 rounds in a row, Xiao Hu's expression became more and more serious. The 2 rounds added up to nearly 2 hours. Junior sister Yun's physical strength and spirit energy were greatly consumed, and her strength would also decrease. At this time, another male disciple jumped onto the competition stage. He sneered, Yun Chujio, you don't think that you're the only one who has a spiritual pet, do you? Take a look at my spiritual pet. As Qi Dongqiang said that, he released his spiritual pet, which immediately caused a wave of exclamations from below. Oh my god! Senior Brother Qi's chiefing white forehead tiger has actually advanced to the 5th level of spirit connection. This time, Yun Chujio is definitely going to lose. Yun Chujio's 2 giant winged birds are no match for the chiefing white-headed tiger. Even 10 of them might not be a match for it, let alone 2. Let's see how Yun Chujio is going to show off this time. She will definitely lose miserably. Qi Dongqiang looked at Yun Chujio with a hint of contempt. He deliberately did not rank at the front because he wanted to let someone test Yun Chujio's strength first so that he could ensure his victory. Now that he saw that Yun Chujio was only SOSO, he naturally had a plan in mind, so he confidently stepped onto the competition stage. Yun Chujio glanced at Qi Dongqiang, then at the white-headed tiger with a sudden gust of wind. Then, she stretched out her claws and said, Pass me the spirit stone first. Also, the nameless immortal under my sword. Tell me your name. Chapter 39:13. Dong. When the onlookers saw that Yun Chujio was still thinking about the spiritual stones at this time, they thought to themselves, this person is really willing to sacrifice his life and money. After Dongqiang passed the spiritual stones to Yun Chujio, he said arrogantly, a man should never change his name and surname. Dongqiang. Yun Chujio frowned. What is Dongqiang? What Dongqiang's? Dongqiang. Dongqiang, almost shouted. What kind of stupid name is so hard to remember? Why don't you just call yourself Bu Long Dong Chong 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 Chong? Yun Chujio clapped her hands and said,
Boom.
The audience burst into laughter immediately. It had to be said that this Yun Chujio's words were really interesting. Bu Long Dong Chong 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 Chong? Haha, it was so funny. Dongqiang was instantly angered from embarrassment. He gritted his teeth and said, Yun Chujio, don't be so glib. Let's fight to see the truth. Before Dongqiang's voice had faded, the sudden-winged white-forehead tiger had already pounced towards Yun Chujio. Two large-winged birds quickly came over to stop it. However, their spiritual power was much lower than the sudden-winged white-forehead tiger. They were immediately forced back by the sudden-winged white-forehead tiger's wind blades. Moreover, one of the large-winged bird wings was cut by the wind blades and was bleeding. Zhao Hu's heart sank. It was over. It had only been one round, and junior sister Yun's spiritual pet was already injured. There was no suspense about the result. Dongqiang also thought the same. He said disdainfully, Yun Chujio, it's still not too late for you to admit defeat now. Otherwise, if my spiritual pet accidentally bites your two spiritual pets to death, it won't be my fault. When Yun Chujio saw the injured giant-winged bird, a fierce look flashed across her eyes. Comparing spiritual pets with her? Then I'll let you know what it means to be utterly abused. Yun Chujio said coldly, Belong Dong Dong, I'll give you my original words. If you admit defeat now, I'll spare you and that idiot of yours. Otherwise, my dinner today will be roasted tiger meat. Once Yun Chujio's words left her mouth, not to mention Dongqiang, even that white tiger with a sudden gust of wind was so angry that it was twitching. You're the idiot. Your whole family is an idiot. Dongqiang snorted coldly. You overestimate yourself. As he said that, he raised his sword and was about to attack. However, his movements came to an abrupt halt because Yun Chujio had released another giant winged bird. Dongqiang's expression was slightly shocked, but he still said with disdain, 3? Even if it's 10, it's useless. Yun Chujio curled the corners of her lips. Even if it's 10, it's useless? What about 15? As Yun Chujio spoke, she released the giant-winged birds. The giant wings of the 15 giant-winged birds cast a shadow over the competition stage and the surrounding disciples. Dongqiang's face instantly stiffened. This Yun Chujio really had 15 giant shadow birds. Did she dig out the nest? And why didn't she release them earlier? The fierce-looking white-headed tiger suddenly became a little nervous. If it was in the wild, it naturally wouldn't be afraid of these 15 demonic birds. It could completely use the terrain and the difference in spiritual power to contend with them. It even had the chance to devour them. However, there was no cover on the competition stage. Those demonic birds had the advantage in the air. It was equivalent to being beaten passively. It was probably not their opponent. The disciples watching below the stage were in an uproar. Yun Chujio actually had 15 giant-winged birds? Didn't they say that for every spirit pet contracted, a part of their spiritual sense would be occupied? She's contracted 15? And doesn't she have a puppy? How does she do that? Chapter 39:14. I didn't do it voluntarily. Although Dongqiang's confidence was somewhat shaken once he admitted defeat, he would lose the qualification to participate in this intersex selection, so he naturally wouldn't give up like this. He gritted his teeth. Yun Chujio, so, what if you have so many spiritual pets? The difference in strength between you and me is enough to make up for the difference in spiritual pets. Watch my sword. Yun Chujio did not dodge. Instead, she used the sword in her hand to block Qi Dongqiang's sword. She curled the corner of her mouth. Qi Belong Dongqiang, are you really going to fight? I can give you another chance. Admit defeat. When Qi Dongqiang heard Yun Chuzhou call him Qi Belong Dongqiang, the veins on his forehead popped up. He gritted his teeth and said, "Admit defeat? In your dreams." Yun Chuzhou laughed lightly. "I forgot to tell you something. Actually, I still have 5 shadow-skimming giant winged birds in my spirit beast bag." As Yun Chuzhou spoke, she released 5 shadow-skimming giant winged birds. Then, she looked at him with a smile that was not a smile. "Are you still going to fight?" Qi Dongqiang's face instantly turned somewhat pale. If it were not for the competition stage, he might have a chance of winning. However, in the square inch of the competition stage, he was simply a living target. Just when Qi Dongqiang was at a loss as to what to do, Yun Chuzhou looked at the sudden-wind white forehead tiger and said, "Little cat, do you still want to fight? If you don't want all your fur to be pecked out, then give it a try." The sudden-wind white forehead tiger immediately felt a chill on its body and unconsciously retreated to Qi Dongqiang's side. It didn't want to run away. Qi Dongqiang saw that his spiritual pet was already showing signs of retreating and knew that even if he reluctantly accepted the challenge, he would definitely be defeated. He gritted his teeth, put away the sudden-wind white forehead tiger, and jumped down from the competition stage. The surrounding disciples were not surprised by this. What a joke. Although the flying shadow bird's spiritual power was not high, it occupied the terrain of the competition stage and was 100 times better than demonic beasts. The disciple who was ranked 4th in the auction was afraid that Yun Chuzhou would let him onto the stage. Just as he was about to escape, a flying shadow bird grabbed his clothes and forcefully dragged him onto the competition stage. The disciples shouted angrily, "I didn't volunteer. I didn't want to go on stage." Yun Chuzhou raised her eyebrows. "You didn't volunteer? Didn't you participate in the auction? Since you participated in the auction, it means that you really want to fight with me. Come on then." The disciple was so angry that he was trembling. "Fight my ass." He didn't have a spiritual pet, so how could he be Yun Chuzhou's opponent? Those birds alone could force him off the stage, all right? That disciple was about to defend himself when Yun Chuzhou said to the people below the stage, "Do you think he is willing? If you think he is not willing, then the few people behind him can come up." When those people heard that, they immediately shouted, "He is willing. Besides, as long as he goes on the stage, he will participate in the competition. It's useless to regret." Yes, junior sister Yun is right. He is willing. That disciple almost vomited blood out of anger. He looked at Manager Song, who was maintaining the order, for help. However, Manager Song acted as if he didn't see it. Apparently, he tacitly agreed that Yun Chuzhou's action was in accordance with the rules. He gritted his teeth. It seemed that there was no room for negotiation. Even Qi Dongqiang had taken the initiative to admit defeat. What was he going to fight for? Hence, he gritted his teeth and said, "I admit defeat." Yun Chuzhou nodded her head in satisfaction. Just as the disciple was about to jump off the stage, he heard Yun Chuzhou faintly say, "Wait, hand over the spirit stones before you go down." Chapter 39:15 laughed like a little fox. That disciple almost wanted to strangle Yun Chuzhou to death. He was already so miserable, yet he still wanted to extort his spirit stones. Wouldn't her conscience hurt? Yun Chuzhou counted with her fingers. Including yesterday's match, she had already won 5 matches in a row. She smiled and said to the manager in charge of registration, "Have I passed the first round of selection?" The manager's mouth twitched and he nodded. "Yes, you've passed the first round of selection." After Yun Chuzhou received a positive answer, she jumped off the stage with a smile and walked to the side of the dumbfounded Zhao Hui. This guy pulled Zhao Hui to the side and asked in a low voice, "Senior brother Zhao Hui, have you not gone on stage yet?" Zhao Hui said in a daze. Yes, I plan to observe and observe again. Hearing this, Yun Chujio immediately laughed sinisterly, making Zhao Hu's hair stand on end. What did junior sister Yun want to do? Senior brother Zhao Hui, what are you trembling for? I have a good idea. I will lend you these 20 giant winged birds, and I guarantee you a complete victory. Yun Chujio, this fellow, had always been clear about gratitude and grudges. Since Zhao Hui had helped her, she would naturally return the favor. Zhao Hui was stunned at first. Then he said in disbelief, Junior sister Yun, are you telling the truth? Of course it's true. It's more real than pearls. Don't release them first. Release them when you can't beat them. Also, don't release them all at once. If that's the case, no fool will fall for the bait. Yun Chujio smiled like a little fox. Zhao Hui finally understood why Yun Chujio didn't release so many shadow birds at the beginning. It turned out that she was fishing for fools. This junior sister Yun was simply full of bad water. Zhao Hui was immediately speechless with gratitude. His spiritual power wasn't low to begin with, and with these shadow birds, he would definitely be able to pass the first round of the selection. Zhao Hu's mind was agile, and he immediately walked to the first stage. The reason he chose the first stage was because it was the furthest from the 19th stage, so he didn't fully know what had just happened. It would be more advantageous for him to fish for fools. Hence, Zhao Hui jumped onto the stage and began his performance. Yun Chujio watched from afar while munching on melon seeds. She felt that there was an 80% chance that a new rule would be introduced the next day, which was that spirit beasts were not allowed to be used. But so what? She had plenty of ways to pass the selection. Zhao Hu's spiritual power was not weak to begin with. Coupled with the confidence in his heart, he was able to perform even better. Even without using the giant bird of shadows, he had won 4 disciples in a row. Yun Chujio could not help but nod her head in satisfaction. This Zhao Hui was really a good helper. At this time, a strong and stocky disciple stepped onto the competition stage. That person said arrogantly, Zhao Hui, although your spiritual power is not bad, you are not my match at all. You deserve your bad luck for meeting me.
Go down.
At this time, Zhao Hui was extremely grateful to Yun Chujio. If she had not lent him the giant winged birds, he would not have been a match for this disciple in front of him. Thinking of this, Zhao Hui didn't waste any time and directly released the 20 giant wing skimmers that Yun Chujio lent him. The sturdy disciple was so scared that he staggered and almost sat on the ground. He had heard that Yun Chujio had won the competition with a group of giant wing skimmers. Why did this Zhao Hui have so many giant wing skimmers? His face turned ashen. There was no need for this competition anymore. Chapter 39:16. Making money in the end. The stocky disciple hopped off the stage dejectedly. He could only look forward to the next year's battle. Zhao Hui walked off the stage happily. Just as he was about to say a few words of gratitude to Yun Chujio, he noticed that Yun Chujio was walking towards the stage. Zhao Hui was dumbfounded. What was junior sister Yun trying to do? The surrounding disciples were also confused. They heard that Yun Chujio had already passed the first round of the selection. Why was she on the stage again? Yun Chujio looked at the people below the stage with a smile and said, Everyone, did you all see that? Senior brother Zhao Hu's shadow-skimming giant winged bird is my spiritual pet. He spent 10,000 high-grade spirit stones to rent it from me. Who else wants to rent it? You have to know that with these 20 shadow birds, one of your feet has already stepped into the inner sect. Such a good opportunity is not always available. After this village, there won't be such a shop anymore. Everyone was stunned at first, then their eyes shone with a burning light. They could actually do this? Yun Chujio was right. With this shadow bird, they would definitely be able to pass the first round of the selection. They naturally could not let go of such a good opportunity. Thus, one by one, they scrambled to rent Yun Chujio's giant birds. Yun Chujio pretended to be troubled and frowned. I only have 20 giant birds, but with so many of you, who should I rent it to? How about this? You guys bid, and the highest bidder will get it. Thus, the first stage instantly became the auction stage, and it became a mess. Upon receiving the news, Manager Song's head was buzzing. He originally thought that Yun Chujo would stop after passing the first round of selection. Who would have thought that she would actually run to the #1 arena to cause trouble? By the time Manager Song arrived, Yun Chujo had already accepted a disciple's 50,000 high-grade spirit stones. She was munching on melon seeds as she watched that disciple run to another arena to flaunt his might. Manager Song was completely speechless. This person had even earned a fortune by participating in the selection. There was no one else. However, there was no rule that forbade the use of spirit beasts, and there was no rule that forbade the loaning of spirit beasts. She could only watch helplessly as she took advantage of the loophole. Zhao Hui, on the other hand, looked at Yun Chujo with a dumbfounded expression. So junior sister Yun lent him the shadow-skimming giant-winged bird for this purpose? Those shadow-skimming giant-wings birds were even more miserable. How did they become the little girl's tool to earn money? Yun Chujo coldly said with her spiritual sense, "All of your food and drinks are mine. So, what if I use you to earn some money? Do you still want to find a nest to settle down in?" Those shadow-skimming giant-wings birds bitterly thought, "It has been so damn long. You should find a place for us to settle down." Yun Chujo thought that she would make a huge profit, but she didn't expect Manager Song to announce a new rule that night. Disciples were not allowed to use spirit beasts, and Yun Chujo's plan to make money was aborted. After another 2 days, the first round of selection finally ended, and the second round of selection began. The second round of selection was even crueler. 10 people were randomly chosen as a group, and in each group, only 2 people would win, and the rest would all be eliminated. Yun Chujo looked at the composition of her group. Other than Zhao Hui, she did not know anyone else, and she did not know how strong they were. Just as Yun Chujo was about to leave, Zhao Hui said to her dejectedly, "Junior sister Yun, follow me." Yun Chujo knew that something bad must have happened when she saw Zhao Hui's expression. She frowned and followed him to his courtyard. Zhao Hui let out a long sigh. "Junior sister Yun, I'm afraid we won't be able to pass the second round of the selection." Chapter 39:17. Second round selection. Yun Chujo raised her eyebrows. "Why do you say that?" Zhao Hui gave a wry smile. "The other 8 people in the group are all direct descendants of Marshal Uncle Wan. What do you think they will do? They will work together to get rid of us at the first moment and then finally decide who will advance. Of course, they may have already decided who will advance, but it's just for show. How could we possibly be a match for 8 people? Moreover, spiritual beasts and spiritual pets are no longer allowed to be used. We have no way of passing the second round of the selection." Yun Chujo was stunned for a moment. Then, she chuckled and said, "I thought it was something important. It's just a small matter. It's almost lunchtime. I'm not going to talk nonsense with you anymore. I have to go back to the courtyard to eat." Zhao Hu's heart was like a dog that was bickering. "Eat, eat, eat. You're a pig. At this time, you still want to eat lunch." Of course, he only dared to mutter these words in his heart. He watched Yun Chujo leave as if nothing had happened. Zhao Hui sat on the chair, dejectedly. He must have been implicated by junior sister Yun, which was why he put him and junior sister Yun in the same group. However, what was the use of saying this now? Since he had already decided to follow junior sister Yun, he naturally had to bear the loss of failure, so he could only grit his teeth and endure it. On the other side, Yun Chujo returned to the dormitory. The reason why she had rushed back to the dormitory thousands of miles away was because if she and Zhao Hui had lunched together and neglected a certain venerable would go on a hunger strike. Yun Chujo also released her spiritual pets and let them have fun in the courtyard. The kitten rolled its eyes and moved closer to Yun Chujo and asked, "Master, how do you plan to pass the second round of the selection? The 2 of you are probably not a match for the 8 of them. Unfortunately, spiritual pets are not allowed now, or else I would be able to contribute." although the cat cub said that he was secretly gloating. Haha, this smelly girl might be beaten to death by those people. That's great. Yun Chujio glanced at the cat cub. It's a piece of cake. I have 100 ways to pass the selection. However, in order to praise your enthusiasm, I'll reward you with 2 dried fish.
Eat.
The cat cub's face was soon filled with tears, because it was too damn salty. This stupid girl must have done it on purpose. Buttface curled his lips.
Idiot.
You still want to play tricks with the little fairy?
I'll play you to death.
Can't you see that even the one who is arguing with the heaven and earth has to submit obediently? You kittens still want to rebel? You're really courting death. Early the next morning, Yun Chujio did not laze around and arrived at the selection venue on time. The original 20 competition stages had been replaced by 5 even larger ones so that the 10 of them could perform. Each competition stage was surrounded by disciples. Yun Chujio found the corresponding second competition stage, and Zhao Hui came over with a pair of dark circles under his eyes. Yun Chujio looked at Zhao Hui and knew that he probably did not sleep the whole night. She could not help but ask in amusement, "Senior brother Zhao, did you not sleep the whole night? It's not a big deal. Do you have to be so worried?" Zhao Hui was about to cry. It's not a big deal? If the selection of inner disciples was not a big deal, then it was not a big deal. As the 2 of them were talking, people had already stepped onto the competition stage. The manager in charge also began to urge Yun Chujio and Zhao Hui to step onto the stage. After Yun Chujio jumped onto the competition stage, she realized that the other 8 disciples who were participating in the selection were looking at her and Zhao Hui with malicious intentions, just like a cat looking at a mouse. Yun Chujio curled her lips. It was not certain who was the cat. You're tuning in to the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.